This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
No, cut that. Keep that. Someday it's going to be worth something.
Russ Wakelin.
You put me in an ATST with frickin' Wookiees attacking me and whatnot?
Now you're talking.
And Romeo Filip in the third chair.
Man, the old Priceline guy sure reminds me of the old TJ Hooker.
With contributions from Total Fangirl
Vampires do not sparkle.
and our loyal listeners.
Are you crazy? That's like 400 hours of gamer nonsense.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming. Coming at the speed of a furious, burning laser scorching itself through the softest foam on the planet.
Yeah.
Today's edition is brought to you by all of our friends over at Patreon, the men, the women, the boys, and girls who help us keep the lights on. Today we're thanking Nathan Herron, Eric Hess, Richard Hickman, David Hightower, and Chris Holm. I'm Geekly McNerdy, and your host today. Our panelists are Russ Washed-Out Wakelin and the Lord of Foam, the Sultan of Soft, the Prince of Mini Protection, Romeo Fluffy Filip. Let's begin. Issue number 1. The term skirmish is defined as an episode of irregular or unpremeditated fighting, especially between small or outlying parts of armies or fleets. Skirmish games, marked with a small model count and a special emphasis on command and control, have been all the rage for years now, causing even vaunted skirmish games to return to their skirmish roots. Question. What were the skirmishers fielded beside the more heavily armored, disciplined hoplites in ancient Greece called? Recon Russ.
Hot mediums.
Rifleman Romeo.
Spartans?
Wrong! Those would be the hoplites. We're talking helots. The helots.
Oh, the helots.
That makes you both hella wrong. Issue number 2. The word soft means something is easy to mold, cut, compress, or fold, not hard or firm to the touch. For a wide variety of uses, the adjective soft is a coveted quality. For comfort and security, soft is definitely the way to go. Question. On the Mohs scale of mineral hardness, what mineral is classified as a 1? The softest mineral on the scale. Rubidium Russ.
I want to go with, I want to say chalk, but that's not a mineral, but that's what I got.
Rhodium Romeo.
Water?
That would not be correct. No, that would make you both wrong. Talc, which is very much like chalk.
It's a key ingredient to chalk.
Actually sound like chalk. I'm going to say Russ is wrong.
Oh, come on. I was close.
Issue number 3. The Punisher, Francis Frank Castle, is a fictional character appearing in American comic book published by Marvel Comics, as well as movies, television shows, and video games. The character is always portrayed as a war veteran and is far more an anti-hero than a traditional comic book hero. Question. In what book did the Punisher make his very first impression? Henry Russo Russ.
Punisher, episode 1.
William Rollins Romeo.
I think it was in Daredevil.
Ooh.
Comic book.
That is wrong! Oh, my throat is hurting with all these wrongs! The Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, that was my second guess.
And if you had got that one, I would have said wrong because you didn't say number 129. And if you said that, I'd say you were wrong because you didn't say February 1974. So really, there was no hope for either of you. That makes me an anti-hero. Issue number 4. In any military action, leadership is an ephemeral, difficult-to-quantify quality that can make or break the entire mission. An intelligent, trained, charismatic leader has dragged victory from the jaws of defeat on many occasions throughout history, while poor leadership has seen more than one superior force dragged screaming down into defeat. Question. What is the most important quality of leadership to reflect in any miniatures war game that strives for realism? Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar Russ.
Overcoming the desire to retreat.
Robert E. Lee Romeo.
Being a steadfast leader?
Wrong! It's those 5 extra wounds, of course. A leader needs to be durable to be of any use. Of course, if someone rolls well when they're attacking, then you'll be praying to make that 5+ recovery roll just like everybody else, but you only have to make it once no matter how many wounds they do. Oh, but there you go. That's it for now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
This episode of the D6 generation is brought to you by Lone Wolf Development. Take your game to the next level.
And by Geek Nation Tours. Rise up and join the Geek Nation, touring the world at geeknationtours.com.
And by Audible. Try the service, get a free book, and support the show. all by visiting audibletrial.com/D6G.
Hello!
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, and welcome to
What a
episode...
beautiful singing voice that man
was
has.
very good. Here in episode 228, Craig.
Yeah, 228 sounds very respectable.
Getting up there of the D6 generation. I'm Russ Wakeland.
I'm Craig Gallant.
And I'm Romeo Filip.
Hey, Romeo, welcome back to the show.
It's
Thank
been
you.
too long,
It's been
Romeo.
way too long.
Yes. It's
Too
been
long.
227 episodes too long.
That's right. Yes, that too. This is fantastic. So Romeo's still chugging along over there. Our friends at Battlefoam. We're going to catch up with Romeo here, right? Talk about what he's been up to, what Battlefoam's doing lately, some new hotness that has heretofore been unannounced.
Secrets
yeah.
to be revealed
Yes.
only here
Only,
at the DC.
But
You
are
heard it
they?
here first.
But are they hard secrets or are they soft secrets?
They're potentially heavenly soft.
Wow.
Oh.
Foreshadowing and
It's like
spoilers.
toilet paper. I say, Battlefoam is going into the toilet paper business.
I don't think you want. That's not really this visual. Maybe you're going.
Could it
for
be-
here?
Could it be ultra?
Oh,
Soft?
Here we go. All right. Anyway,
All right.
more about that later. But also, we're going to talk about the new hotness from Privateer Press, Company of Iron. So
Very
we'll-
lovely.
We'll be giving that a nice review as well. But first, we got to get through all of our great gaming achievements here. But we do have a couple of announcements. First of all, we have recently recorded a Lost Chapter, and we caught up with Romeo at the sort of virtual Dunkin' Donuts there. And whilst he was sitting there chatting, enjoying his favorite Dunkin' Donuts beverage, Romeo, what do you prefer at Dunkin' Donuts? What's your favorite Dunkin' Donuts beverage?
So, my coffee drink of choice is just your typical Colombian blend.
Yeah, sure.
Obviously, full octane. I don't do that snowflake decaf crap.
Why would you? Yeah, exactly.
Only that's for amateurs. And
Right.
then I like a little coffee with my sweet creamer.
There you go. So,
I dabble during the holidays with the hazelnut, but every once in a while I will throw the vanilla in just for show.
you know what's good is if you just put a splash of eggnog in there. That's
But then that follows a little splash of bourbon too. You know
right,
what I mean?
because now you're
You know what I'm
talking.
saying?
Now you've turned it from a wake-up beverage to an evening relaxation beverage.
Yes.
But you won't fall asleep. That's the best part. You got late night work to do. You got to record some silly podcast here at night. You do that, and you're ready to go.
That's right.
So,
Smooth operator.
and if you want to hear about what we talked about, Romeo, do you remember what we talked about there in the Lost Chapters?
Sure. No, I don't remember any.
See,
Are you kidding me
due
right
to
now? I've already forgot.
Eddie is once again stuck in the time-space
in the
continuum.
space-time continuum. But when we recorded this, we talked about, Craig, do you remember what we talked about?
I think we went in depth
Right.
into the Mohs scale of hardness for minerals.
No.
Oh, God,
no.
that thing.
No,
Wow.
I forgot
no,
about
This
no.
is like pulling teeth here. It must be the holidays. People are confused. No, we talked about
Sorry, too much
that show
eggnog.
on Netflix, The Punisher.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yes, yes. So we
In which I have no doubt Russ waxed eloquent. On and on and on.
I don't know.
Well, Romeo and I sat back and listened, just bathing in his genius.
Whilst sipping eggnog and rum-laced beverages. So if you want to hear that, us talk about a spoiler-filled thoughts on the entire first season of Punisher. Craig, what should people do to really discover and enjoy the Lost Chapters?
Well, I would have to say, Russ, that the easiest way would be to go to patreon.com and just put in the D6 Generation in the search bar.
Yeah.
And it'll bring you right to us. Or you could go to the D6generation.com and then go in through that side right there on the right-hand margin. There'll be a little button. And we should say that Patreon a couple weeks ago did some weird thing where they thought they came up with this genius plan that was going to really shake up the whole thing, and it was very disappointing and upsetting to almost the entire globe, and they have since decided to rescind that, and they're not going to go with that. So it's good old-fashioned Patreon like it's been working for years.
It has.
No worries, no fears. Ooh, look at that. I just made a rhyme. Anyway, so either that. You can go through patreon.com or through the d6generation.com. Either way, we'll bring you to the same place. Avoid the video. Check out the basics. Kick in a couple bucks here or there. A couple bucks per episode or more will get you the entire library of the Lost Chapters.
There you have it.
Man.
So
At
there you
your
go.
disposal.
So Craig, what's the time now for?
Time now for
Achievements in Gaming.
It is. And, of course, achievements brought to us by friends at Patreon. And so our guest here, Romeo, why don't you go first? What have you been playing lately, sir? Board games, miniature games, RPGs?
Two games that have been very much the focal point of our fun little Battlefoam family gaming group. Our Thursday, by the way, we do a Thursday night gaming group.
Cool. Yeah.
We have one of the sales guys plays in it every week, and then we have one of our customer service guys, and we're bringing in our new marketing manager guy to do it. More about him later. But these guys are dedicated gamers. We've tried it all. But what we're doing right now is, if you can believe it, Dystopian Wars has been hot on our table.
Ooh.
Their sea, naval, aerial battles have been grudge matches lately. I bring the big robot, and for the life of me, I just call him the Donald. He's not the Donald.
Does he have an orange top? Because
I have not painted him orange, but I did paint gold stars on his helmet, which is sweet, and he has a gold crest down the middle, so it's close.
Okay.
But he literally you guys know the model I'm talking about. It's like the large walker with the dual.
The German? I mean,
the American.
Sorry,
Come on.
the American.
I'm a patriot, for God's sakes. I can't play with daggone Germans.
Okay.
It's the Germans.
Wow.
No, it's only the USA for me. And I bring in the Donald, and he just lays waste to the enemies, and everybody's mad now, and they won't play with me if I bring it. So I have to settle into battleships. What a bunch of crybabies.
So Romeo, are you excited?
Romeo, wait. I want to ask.
Okay.
Romeo, how do you feel? Because we have not spoken about this. We had no idea you were playing this game.
Right. This is very exciting.
How do you feel now that Dystopian Wars and Wild West Exodus are being blended together into one universe?
Listen, here's a funny thing that you bring that up. It's a very interesting topic, and we could probably do a whole show on this topic alone. But what's very interesting about it is we started playing Dystopian Wars right when they announced it was folding, which is so typical gamer, right? And we don't like anything until it's gone. It's like, oh no, Uncharted Seas, where have you gone? You know, and it's like when it comes back, it's like, you idiots, why did you make this terrible game? Get it out of my sight. No, but we started playing it, and we really got hooked on it because we love the exploding dice mechanic and just a lot of cool factors of the game. Yep. Anyway, as soon as it was announced, I kind of knew from the guys over at War Cradle that there was some of that couldn't happen because talking to Stuart, he kind of accidentally tells me things without telling me things. And I knew something was happening. I didn't realize it was going to be this blended, though. So I'll be honest with you, I'm super excited. I mean, there's nothing wrong with what they're doing. The time frames match up really well. Obviously, they're happening almost identical time frames. The kind of the element that was found in Dystopian Wars in Antarctica kind of has that same RJ-1027 feel that obviously in Wild West Exodus was kind of developed by our crazy scientists in that world. So I think it does lend itself a lot of easy blendage, and I think that's why they did it. I would call it the Food Ninja of gaming. They definitely put it on Tumble Smash and put it together, which I like. So I don't know. I'm excited. They have 3.0 coming out, I guess, soon. They look like people are asking for the early release. So I'm going to obviously devour every page of it and see where it goes. But, worst case scenario, it stinks and I play 2.5 forever, or we do, or it's amazing and we buy more Donald Trump models. I mean, simple as that.
Wow. That's awesome. I think it'd be great if they actually made a Donald sort of character in the new Dystopian X universe or whatever.
Oh, I wouldn't hold your breath.
You make him a villain or a hero. It'd be kind of cool if you could play him on either side. That way you can choose based on your political affiliation. You can do what you want.
He's a secret agent.
Right, exactly.
And then there could be the sex and religion expansion.
Oh, jeez.
And then that would be awesome.
To go there.
And then every time you sit down at the table, it'll be like, cool, let's just chat.
We were safe moments ago.
You can have gaming cards with like fiscal prudence of the government, and depending when you played it is how much money the government had.
Okay, we're going to
run.
Exactly.
So much
We're getting
fun.
dangerous here, but that's awesome. So, Rome, it's fantastic that you're enjoying Dystopian Wars, and it's
very
great that
cool.
the game has both died and since resurrected during your tenure in the game. So that's fantastic.
And we're playing Hordes. I play Hordes only. But,
great.
Warmachine and Hordes. So we're doing that too, which was just last week. And I brought my Circle Orbrus back and just put some Pound Town to some people with my Tharn fighters, which are just nasty little
Now, what are your
animals,
favorite Circle units? Because my daughter's a Circle player. What do you like the most?
Well, I don't play the Tharn characters. I just started playing them this last game because I've always played either Construct side or the Warpwolf side of things.
Right.
I have a bunch of those minis.
Yeah.
So I decided to go all of the Tharn characters, like the Blood Reavers and all that crazy stuff, kind of like almost like the jungle-y characters, if you will. Right. And they're nasty, man. A lot of them have like these. God, I'm trying to think of the name of the attack. It's for God's sakes. Anyway, the models, they basically can shoot you first and then they charge you, so they get a free shot and they get the charge in the same action, which is that's really nasty because they hit hard and they shoot hard. So I like that. That's fun.
That's awesome. Well, fantastic. I'm glad it's working out. I'm really loving
Assault and Battery. I remember it. Sorry, Assault and Battery.
Assault and Battery.
Yeah,
yes.
Assault
That's an awesome role.
Yeah.
Craig, what about you, sir? What are you playing?
Nothing. I have played nothing since the last episode.
Wow, that's sad. I'm a little
well,
sad for you.
I mean, you took off on me at the last minute last time we could have played, and then
New York this week,
and I went to New York. Yeah, so that was my
All right. Well
done the show, guys. Thanks.
No. I've been playing things, and Craig's
Romeo will have to get you back again soon.
Right.
See ya.
So I played a 5-player version of Star Trek Ascendancy. So Star Trek Ascendancy is dangerously close to becoming my favorite. I'm going to say sci-fi 4X board game, but it almost might be my favorite 4X game now. It really plays smooth. I love the different factions. So over the summer, or Gen Con time period, actually, the Ferengi came out. So the game comes with, for Star Trek fans, it comes with the Federation, the Romulans, and the Klingons in the core set. And it's in the core set, you must play 3 players, no more, no less, 3 players. Then they've added now over the course of the summer, they added the Ferengi and the Cardassians. So now you can play 3 to 5
Kardashians?
Players. Yeah. No, not those. Not Kim.
They make it into space? No!
Then they added the Borg, but the Borg are not playable. The Borg are like a third. But by adding the Borg, it makes it now a 2-player to 5-player game. I do like the board mechanics, though, because if they take over your faction, you kind of become the bad guys, which is neat. But it's a really great game, plays really well. The factions are very different, and it was the first time I played a full 5-player game. It did take about 3.5 hours, so it's a time investment. But I don't think it's that, when you consider it's a 5-player game of that scale, that's really not bad, and we were learning. So I think it could come in a little faster than that. But I'm really enjoying it, so I'm really liking that. As then I was talking to Romeo before the show started, I've been playing a lot of Rivet Wars. My youngest daughter was looking for a game to play, and I said, we haven't tried this ever. And I played it with friends, but I hadn't broken out in a while, so I brought out all my Rivet Wars stuff. And she fell in love with it. Not only did she really enjoy it, but then she said, can I try painting one? And I was like, ooh. And I've tried to get Kid into Warmachine, and she won't do it because she's played Warmachine and likes it. In fact, she's very good at it, but she doesn't like painting the Warmachine models. She thinks, when I first tried to get her to paint when she was younger, she felt like it was too hard, and she wasn't good at it, and she felt it was part of the game, and so she didn't really want to play with unpainted models. But now she tried this, and so what we did was I primed them for her. I airbrushed them lightly and let her paint the faces and the hair and some details, and she loved it. She was like, I like how they're coming alive. It's so much fun. And so then she painted like 4 of them, and then she looked at me and she goes, this might get me excited to try Warmachine again, Dad. I was like, yes! I was like, well, let's stay focused. So we're doing Rivet Wars right now, and I just ordered a bunch of the Rivet Wars foam because I realized, so one of the problems with the Rivet Wars is now that I'm playing it regularly with her, I'm discovering that the way it comes, everything comes in plastic, which is good, but it's distributed over a bunch of boxes, and you can't find the way. What's cool about Rivet Wars is that it's kind of like simulating a real-time strategy game on a computer. So what that means is you start the board basically empty, and you're basically spawning units throughout the game. And as you buy more expansions and create more unit types, it just gives you more and more cards to spend your resources to spawn. So you could choose, based on the tactical moment of the game, to spawn a bunch of core infantry that come in the core set, or you could start spawning like German zombies and American robots, like right from the beginning if you want, from the 3rd expansion or whatever. So it's up to you how you spawn. And the problem is, if you decide tactically you want to spawn somebody, now you gotta go wade through all your little plastic boxes and find the right guy. So what you really need is some well-designed foam system to keep all your well-painted models in order and sorted properly.
I know a guy.
And so I hopped on the Battlefoam site and I ordered some foam because, of course, Romeo's team over there does a great job of pre-making all the foam for pretty much every board game that comes with miniatures. So I was like, "Ooh, I'll take the Rivet Wars set, please." So I'm excited about that. But yeah, Kit and I are really, really enjoying Rivet Wars. So excited to see that game come to life. And then, of course, I might have mentioned this last episode, but I did get a quick game of Company of Iron in with Rafe. And it was a blast. So I'm really enjoying Company of Iron. It's also got Rafe excited to play more Warmachine as well as Company of Iron. So Romeo, you might try some Company of Iron. I know we talk about it later, but try it with your group there. If you got some Warmachine guys, try it out.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it. I have the game. We've done foam for the game. We'll cover later, but I haven't played it. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, cool. So what about modeling? Romeo, you built anything lately? Painted anything?
Well, honestly, man, half my job is building models. I'm not even kidding. That's not even like a pun. I really do. Right. I mean, because, when we get new stuff, Privateer, by the way, huge shout out to Privateer in general. Let me just put this out there. Not because they've been our partners for years, which they have been, and they're one of our favorite partners we have. But they are so good about getting us models early and letting us get everything ready and prep for their audience before they launch it, so that like if that crocodile that just came out, that really cool badass crocodile model, that's a huge, cumbersome, goofy looking thing, and in a good way. I don't mean goofy as in terrible sculpt, as in awesome sculpt, but it's when you see it in person, the internet does no justice for it.
Right.
It's so massive and so cool and so spindly that when we get those kind of models early, what's really neat is we can get ahead of the game and get the foam design for it, which is really neat. So just a big shout out to them for always providing the models early. They got us Company of Iron early, so we can get the box set up for their gamers, and that's really huge because I know companies can get really busy. They can get focused on their projects. They forget about partnerships and like the little silly things like this. And for them to really provide us with that stuff on a regular basis without even being asked just shows their commitment to their fans, because they know we're going to turn it into something for their customer base. So it's pretty awesome.
That's awesome. Hey, can I ask you a question? If you're not comfortable answering it, don't.
Uh-oh.
Yes. I just realized as you're describing this and you're talking about how you have – I meant to ask you this later in the show, which we haven't recorded yet, but we may have. But I want to ask you this. So – you're kind of in a unique position at Battlefoam where you have licensed foam or you make custom foam for pretty much every miniature game out there.
Sure.
You must have a feeling based on the kind of orders you get, which games are popular and which games are less popular. Do you feel like there's a trend right now?
Very much so. I can probably spend a good 20 minutes on this topic, and I think we definitely should spend some time on it later in the show or whenever you guys want. But I definitely do see trends and patterns, and the patterns a lot of times have to do with what the general flow. It's like a wave, that comes in. And then it crests, and then it washes out.
So like right 8th edition comes out for GW 40K,
yes.
Boom, everything's 40K for 6 months or a year.
We see a huge spike in 40K foam. We see a huge spike in troop trays. We see a huge spike in like 720 large army type bags, right? And of course, when an army releases an update, then you see a spike in that army specifically. But it crests, and then after that, the wave goes over, and then the next wave comes in with something different. And the one that's kind of been repetitive, in other words, things that keep cresting and are staying hot, I guess you can call it, is definitely skirmish games. Really, board games, skirmish style games, quick action in a box. I want satisfaction, give it to me now, kind of things have shown a lot of growth in the last probably 12 to 14 months for us. So we've definitely seen that.
Cool. I just had to ask. Sorry.
There we go.
Cool. So you built the new crocodile thingy there from Privateer.
Yes.
Anything you're building for yourself, or are you doing mostly stuff for work?
Yeah, no. So armies that I play, like I said, I do my circle, which is awesome. So there's always new units that I buy and collect and slowly paint and build. Right now I was telling you those Tharn guys. I just finished up a blood pack and I'm starting to paint them. I did some airbrushing on them, so I got a little, just a little 6-man blood pack going, just because I like the way they kick some ass. They're pretty cool. I've been painting my Dystopian War stuff, obviously because we're playing these naval fleet games. Other models I buy a lot of Forge World, probably because I'm an addict for it. Right. I'm a big 30K guy, so I like them. as minis. I don't collect everything from Forge World. I just kind of, pick an army and kind of stick with it and go. But yeah, I mean, those are my main things that I'm building right now, and then everything else is for work related. So I really do build everything across the board. So I have my hands on mouse. So I get to see the quality of things. I get to kind of touch and play with different instruction styles and what people do to package their minis. And you learn a lot. I mean, I think that's what allowed me to get into Wild West Exodus was I really got to see a wide gamut of miniatures from so many manufacturers and how they did things. And, you see people that are build models for the purpose of the game rules are strong and the models are whatever. They're just placeholders for a really strong rule set. And you can tell they're not as worried about how detailed the minis are because they just function a certain way. Then you see other manufacturers where their game's a little weak, but their models are epic. And they know it's a more collectors-based game where people want the really beautiful models, and the rules work, but they may not be the best. So you see all kinds of up and down trends based on the different manufacturers.
Cool, great. How about you, Craig? What have you been painting lately?
I finished all those Death Guard guys, so now I have all those models all included and nice and sealed and folded back into the bloated and pustulal scattered arms of my Death Guard army. And I am trying to get back to my Dakan for Rune Wars because I kind of want to clear the deck before I get into anything new, and I'm kind of trying to be disciplined about finishing all of the Rune Wars models that I have, and then I want to get to the those 10 I think they're 10 millimeter, the models for the Game of Thrones, the Battles of Westeros game. And that's a lot of minis, but that's my goal right now is to try to get all those out of the way. So right now I've gone back to my original 2-starter set block of the Dakan horsemen and spearmen, and that's what I'm working on at the moment. What about you, Russ?
Well, as I mentioned, the Rivet War stuff. So I painted 6 guys with kit as well as the 2 big vehicles that come in the core game, the Chicken Walker for the Allies and the sort of the Spider Tank for the Germans there. Did both of those. I have to say, so back when I was originally considering painting Rivet Wars, I was kind of intimidated because one of the things of Rivet Wars, for those who have not seen it, it's the art style is really cool. So it's kind of like little chibi humans combined with what a rivet might look like. If you can imagine that happening, is kind of what these guys. So they're very cartoony. Very sort of chibi, super cute. But the problem with their style is they're a lot of smooth surfaces. So as a brush, before, this time last year, I was a brush painter. So I looked at that. I was like, man, that's a lot of work to keep the brush strokes out and do that. And dry brushing doesn't work as well on smooth surfaces. But now that I have an airbrush, I cranked these things out. I was like amazed. Like the tanks looked fantastic with like 5 minutes worth of work and 2 colors on an airbrush. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. So started cranking the dudes out, and like the little Ally smooth helmets just look perfect with the shading you can get with an airbrush. It takes like no time at all. And so I'm loving it. And so I'm basically airbrushing all the guys, and then my younger daughter's jumping in and doing little details, doing the eyes, doing the mouth, doing the hair, doing the beards. And she's loving it because it's really straightforward and easy, and she's nailing down the basics of painting. So it's been a blast. So really enjoying that, and I think we'll have this stuff painted up pretty soon. And then I realized I was missing a whole Rivet Wars kit. I didn't realize that there was a kit that came out. So when I backed the Kickstarter, I kind of backed like everything. So slowly over time, more and more Rivet Wars was shipped to me. So I thought I had everything, but I realized later that I have 2 airplanes. There's a little tri-wing. So Rivet Wars takes place during World War I. So, the alternate reality, because people weren't rivets, Craig. I don't know if you know that, but people actually...
No, it's all about the rivets. Yeah.
They weren't rivets, actually, then. So this game, they're rivets.
No wonder I failed history class.
Right. And there's walkers and stuff. So it's like alternate physics, because you can be a rivet, but then also sort of like steampunk, diesel punk kind of thing, because the Allies have walkers and the Germans have walkers. But there's air power. And there's a triplane and a biplane kit with a Kickstarter. But what I didn't know was there's an entire box set of a bunch of other aircraft, along with rules for just pure aerial dogfights in the Rivet War universe. So I'm like, man, I got to get those. So So that's on my list to get too. But once I get that, I think I'll have everything Rivet. I'll be completely whole in the Rivet universe. Yes.
Will you be riveted?
I will be riveted. And again, to my surprise, the Battlefoam set covers the spots for every single Rivet except for like 3, which is no problem. So that's pretty
Just
awesome.
let me know. I know a guy.
Okay, good. Let me know if I can get those 3 rivets in there somehow. So I'm having a blast with this game. I've just forgotten how much fun it is, and I'll talk more about Rivet Wars some other time because just for the mechanics and stuff. I think we reviewed it once, but it's just a great game. All right. What about other geeky goodness like movies, TV shows, books you're reading? Romeo, any of that stuff?
Well, I don't read, so that's out the No, I'm kidding. No, I'm actually reading once again it's a book basically to teach you how to argue, but never and win every argument. The Art of Verbal Judo. I don't know if you guys have read this lovely book, but it's great for negotiating and disarming your wife in an altercation. So I recommend if anybody out there is listening and you're married and you want to win every argument against your lovely significant other, if you're a lady and you'd like to win against your lovely husbands, The Art of Verbal Judo is a must-read. I read it about 12, 15 years ago, and it got me through a bunch of pickles. And then just recently I was like, man, I want to revisit that. I may have forgotten some of my tricks, and people are getting over on me in arguments, so I better – no, I'm kidding. But I have been reading that actually. What have I been painting? You guys know already, Dystopian War stuff. And movies and stuff that I've been watching. We're heading out as a company. I'm taking all of our guys to Star Wars tomorrow.
Nice.
Ooh, nice.
Yes. So that's very exciting. We're going to see some Star Wars. I'm neither here or there on Star Wars, but I do have a question for you. Okay, this is actually, both of you guys, I almost forgot it when you brought up Star Trek earlier. Okay, if North Korea invaded today and had a pre-Cold War era AK-47 non-functional to your head, okay?
Yeah.
And they said, pick Star Wars or Star Trek. You can only love and watch one, and the other will be wiped from your memory forever because we are a dark, soulless country taking over America. Which would it be, boys? Tell me, Russ.
I would die first before you take any of my sci-fi.
But pick one or the other.
No. Why does that?
You have to.
Why do you have
North
to pick
Koreans,
one or
they
the
don't
other?
negotiate.
I step over
weak, my friend.
I step over Russ's cold corpse and I say Star Wars all the way.
Okay. So Star Wars and I plead the fifth. Got it. Okay.
Yes. Because why do you need to pick? I never understood this. Like, would you
Because
add
they're
Doctor
North
Who to that?
Koreans. They don't negotiate.
First of all,
Why is Doctor Who not on that list? Do I get to keep Doctor Who? If so, why? Do I get to keep Mad Max? If so, like, why can I only have one sci-fi?
Listen, Kim Jong-un does not care about your other sci-fi. He's asking you a direct question.
Why did you want to just remove one?
Because he's Kim Jong-un.
Anybody who watches the news regularly will recognize the judo Russ is now doing as you're asking the wrong question, Romeo, technique of political punditry.
Right. I'm trying my verbal judo here. It's apparently not working.
That's right.
But I'm just saying. So verbal judo apparently, Romeo, only works when you're 1-on-1. When you're outnumbered 2-1, it's a little trickier.
Or when you're talking about your spouse.
Yes.
Then you're always
actually. Could you put your wife on the phone, please? I want to ask her about Star Wars and Star Trek.
I know she's busy watching Star Trek.
Okay, fair. I like both, but I've never understood though this need to pick two there, but there's not a need to pick two anywhere else. Like if some new sci-fi, like The Expanse, right? Does anybody go, well, you like The Expanse, right? So would you no longer watch Star Wars? I'm like, well, what does that have to do with anything? I like both. Like,
I think
why is Star Trek versus Star Wars?
Russ, I think you're being intentionally obtuse because Star Trek and Star Wars are both. No, I think it is.
Well, they have the word star in it.
Are both these? Well, no, they're both large monolithic entities that transcend their original material into all kinds of different media. I mean, there isn't anything else that really compares to the two of them.
What about Game of Thrones?
And so I would say Game of Thrones does not even come close to Star Trek or Star Wars. It's very successful, and I love it, and it's very popular, but it doesn't in some small ways it has transcended the original material. You're right, but it's not anything like Star Wars or Star Trek.
What about Marvel Avengers?
Is now more popular,
that's a good one. That brings another good point because the DC and Marvel world, they always pit those two against each other. So
And why Lord of the Rings? Like, is it Lord of the Rings versus Game of Thrones, or can you like both?
Good versus bad, black versus white.
I don't understand. I just don't get it. I mean, I understand.
There's no
I know
point
there's a thing. You're not inventing it. I know it's out there. What I'm asking the people out there that fight about this stuff is like, why can't we all just? Why does it have to be chocolate or vanilla? Why can't you have a twist? Right? Why must we judge?
Russ is such a flower child. Seriously.
He's a delicate snowflake that needs a love.
I like. Why can't I have both? I don't understand.
You know what? In the real world, Russ, no one is actually putting the AK to your head.
No, but they yell at you like they are. Russ, like people do get passionate about this stuff, which I don't understand.
Bro, I don't understand anybody getting passionate about it either. I understand the concept of the dichotomy and having a friendly conversation. I enjoy Star Wars far more than I enjoy Star Trek, which does not mean that I don't enjoy Star Trek. But if I had to pick one, I know which one I would pick. If you had to pick one, I don't know which one you would pick because you're very good at obfuscating this particular
why would
point.
I choose? It's like this. Okay, if you want to get into it, there are some Star Trek movies that are better than some Star Wars movies. And there are some Star Wars movies that are better than some Star Trek movies. And if I was forced into one of those
I would agree with both of them.
I might have to live with Jar Jar and Voyager, right? Like I want neither of those.
But
what
if
I'd
you
rather
had to, like,
is
the
Wrath
best
Khan
of the best.
and Empire Strikes Back, right? Why can't I, if we're going to do this, why don't we slice out the crap from both sides and just keep the good stuff?
Here's what I'm gonna wrap this up in a nutshell as far as my thought
Bring
process
it home,
too. Here's what I like.
Right.
I lean Star Wars for two reasons. Now, here's the thing. I really like Chris Pine as Captain, Kirk and all that stuff. I think they do a great job with the new cast.
They've done a really good job with the
Bones. The new movies are epic. The old movies, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get hate mail for this, but I thought they were super tacky. Because I always thought the old Priceline guy reminded me of T.J. Hooker when he was T.J. Hooker. Right? You guys remember when in like the 70s when he was T.J. Hooker? And he was super
Priceline guy reminds me of T.J. Hooker.
Which he's the kid. He was always that dude, right?
That is the best line of the year. There it is. That is it. Write that down.
But you saw him in those old cheesy Star Trek, and I just could never believe he would scare any entity into submitting to the Enterprise or its photon blasters. So that alone kind of put me off to the old version of the show.
Right.
Plus, Captain, Spockster has the worst haircut ever. I mean, it's Lloyd from Dumb and Dumber at the next level, right?
Yeah, okay.
So it doesn't do anything for me, but the new ones are solid, right? And I really like it. Now, here's the underlining why I've always liked Star Wars more than Star Trek.
Sure.
Star Wars always seems to have the better alternate races, right? So what I mean by that is they take away from the stereotypical every race stands on 2 feet, has 2 arms, and a set of eyeballs, right? But they wear heavy makeup. It's like the Klingons just have, an a-hole on their head, and it's like that's what they are. It's like they're just the guys with like a lot of foreheads. Doesn't scare me enough.
I would say the biggest difference. I get what you're saying there, and you're right.
Yeah.
What Star Wars did, I think that was really compelling. Although Star Trek tried to do this, but their budget was a little tighter.
Yes.
And they also came out first. I mean, Star Trek was out a few years before the first Star Wars, so they, and they were television budget versus movie budget, but they both tried to do what was cool, was have lots of different alien races. The difference was that Star Wars had more of a budget, so the alien races look a little different. Plus, they had access to Muppets, whereas Star Trek. But I think the biggest difference between Star Wars and Star Trek, and why people freak out about this, is Star Trek is science fiction, and Star Wars is space opera. And I think, and I tweeted this the other day, and I know you haven't seen The Last Jedi yet, so I will not spoil anything.
Thanks.
But I think the reason some fans have gotten confused lately is that what made Rogue One amazing was Rogue One got dangerously close to science fiction. Because they...
And how do you mean that? It felt more like a war epic to me.
That's what I mean. Because science fiction, is good science fiction is political commentary, right? And it's based in some level of reality. So it's like it's a foreseeable, realistic future. So in Rogue One, there were no Jedi. The magic was very, very minimized, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was really a war movie. It was really a realistic setting, and it was about the politics of a rebellion and an empire and the whole thing. It was very about how it rips apart. It was very, very it was very close to sci-fi. Now, it's still set in the same universe. The Last Jedi and Rogue One, and the Force Awakens are very, very, and The Last Jedi in particular, super space opera. But Star Wars itself is space opera, right? It's not meant to be science fiction at all. And I think that's why the two sides do get fighty, because they're essentially different genres, except that they're in space. But I don't think space defines science fiction, right? It's really the kind, and Star Trek is the best Star Trek. And one of the reasons I think a lot of people like Orville is the best Star Trek still has political commentary in it and self-examination of our society through the lens of science fiction, so you're not supposed to be as offended, or it's not supposed to be as blatantly obvious, but it's there. Where Star Wars, it's there may be a little bit of it in there, but generally Star Wars is just so far out in just let's just, divorce ourselves from reality and have a lot of fun, which is not a bad thing at all, by the way. I love it. So it's very different, right? And I think that's what the big, which is why they're able to go crazy with the aliens, too. They don't have to be realistic at all. They can be totally...
Right.
Wackadoodle crazy, where in Star Trek they're trying to say, well, would evolution create... Well, first it was a budget issue, but now they're trying to be semi-realistic. They wouldn't have Hammerhead like they do in Star Wars walking around,
Which is cool. So that's
which is cool. I like it.
I like the craziness of Star Wars, and I really like, and I don't know what the new one is like until I see it, obviously, but the Rogue One part of that was very cool. I when Disney bought the rights from Lucas, I think Disney looked at the environment, looked at what people are like nowadays. You got a lot more cynical people. You got a lot more factual people watching these movies. You got kids that are accustomed to bloodshed and gore and all this stuff because that's all they play on their video games and they see on TV. So Disney probably said, and it's funny you say Disney in the same term as gore, but Disney ratcheted up the violence a bit in some of these movies. And I think the adults are getting – it's more in tune to what they – kind of almost, it sounds gross, but favor, right? We tend to favor that kind of nonsense nowadays more than we did in the past. So I think that's why it resonates more. And even Star Trek in the newer movies, you see a little more violence.
More gore. Yeah. But I think they got themselves in trouble with that, Romeo, because I've seen a lot of fans mad over things that Star Wars fans normally wouldn't get mad over. I saw a whole thread about how, and this isn't really a spoiler, but there's a space bomber in the very beginning of The Last Jedi. It's dropping bombs vertically out of the ship and they're falling towards the bad guy ship.
Right, ruined for me. Thanks. I guess I won't go.
People are like, what? Bombers in space? And I'm like, if your biggest problem with Star Wars physics is bombers in space, you haven't been watching the same space opera I've been watching, right? There is no nod at all in Star Wars at any time. This is a movie that Lucas intentionally said, I wanted the fighters to fly like fighters in World War II so people could self-identify with it, even though that's not how fighters would ever fly in space. There's no intent. This is the Force, right? There's no, it's magic. It's a different world. They can do whatever they want for fun of it. They should and can do things that are this would just be cool, right? This would just look awesome. Who cares if it's realistic? It's not part of the goal of this. It's never been a tenet of Star Wars. Well, Star Trek has that nod to reality. It's, there's still transporters and crap that, again, from budget reasons, they invented the transporter initially, which still seems like a pretty long shot to ever happen. But the idea of it's just a little different, right? So I think it's fine, but I think what they're getting into now is because Rogue One, which I liked all the, for the same reasons you, Romeo, I love all the new Star Wars movies, but I'm worried that Rogue One got people into they really liked it because it was a little more gritty. The Last Jedi is not gritty. There's gritty parts, but it's not the same kind of movie as Rogue One is. And if you go in there hoping for Rogue One, I think you might be disappointed. It's not Rogue One.
So I guess I'm not going. It's cool, guys.
It's good.
Anyway, though.
Well, Craig probably was going to disagree with me on this. I loved it. By the way, I loved it. It's one of my top Star Wars movies. I love The Last Jedi, but I loved it partly because it went back to the Star Wars I loved as a kid. It was more Star Wars than The Last Jedi, than Rogue One, and Rogue One felt like a not Star Wars movie set in the Star Wars universe. Does that make any sense? I don't even know if that...
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's what it was meant to be. It was meant to be the little people, right? It was meant to be what do the little people do in this war-torn universe?
And I'm looking forward to Solo, because I think it's going to be the same sort of thing. I think you're going to take Solo, and they're going to do some really interesting stuff with it. So that should be fun, too.
Very exciting.
But yeah. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. Oh, you haven't seen it yet. So let us know. Send me an email, Romeo. I want to know how you enjoyed it. because I'm curious now. Yeah.
Yes.
Sweet. Anything else on your list there? That was cool though.
On my list of things I'm watching, and obviously I'm watching The Punisher, for God's sakes.
Of course you are. We already talked about that.
Jeez.
All right.
Punisher's awesome, obviously. Very good show. I mean, everything Netflix is doing lately, outside of like their stock going through the friggin' roof, is just, man, home run after home run on Netflix. My goodness.
The thing about Netflix is interesting is they're taking lots of shots on goal. So if you actually wade through all their Netflix original series sponsored by them, there's a lot of bad ones in there.
Sure.
There's a lot of bad ones in there. Yeah. But it's okay I don't care, because there's also quite a few good ones in there. So I'm okay with them just cranking out all kinds of crazy stuff. And quite frankly, some of the ones I don't like, I'm sure other people love. But I just like the fact that we're getting some real, getting a Punisher series that dark, that good, that authentic, which we'll talk more about, is just
good.
Great. Yeah, I'm loving that.
Nice.
All right, Craig, what about you, sir? What have you been reading, watching?
Well, it's funny. Rafe mentioned John Scalzi's Old Man's War.
Yeah, right.
And on the air, I was like, oh, yeah, I think I read that. And I looked, and the magic of Kindle, I found it and immediately put it back on my phone and read it again. And it's so good. I enjoyed it. I immediately then jumped into Ghost Brigades, which is where I am now. So really cool sci-fi. It's very Star Wars-esque in its only in its galaxy filled with aliens. There's like 680 intelligent species in the galaxy as far as this story goes, and most of them hate humans, so that's always fun. So I'm really enjoying that. Still listening to Storm of Swords, Book 3 in the A Song of Ice and Fire trilogy, also known as Game of Thrones. I've only got 8 hours left. Back to watching some TV. I just finished. I got caught up on Orville. I just think they're doing great work with that still.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
I finally got around to watching Dirk Gently. I'm finding it oddly compelling.
Now, are you in season 1 or are you in season 2?
I'm in season 1.
Okay, good.
So, and I feel like I fluctuate every other episode. I'm like, oh, that's too silly. I don't care. Oh, wow, that's really cool. So I am. I'm still sticking with that. The Last Jedi, you guys already mentioned. Saw that. Thanks to the kindness of the Wakeland family and the fact that Nicole is more famous than Russ and I combined. So she was invited to the world premiere, and so I got her seat in the Massachusetts premiere.
That's right. That's how that happened.
And then I just came back from our winter biannual trip to Broadway, and I'm very briefly going to touch on one of the shows that we saw. We saw Come From Away, which is probably the best musical I've seen in more years than I can count. Like we're talking decades. It was amazing. It's, believe it or not, somebody went and made a musical out of 9/11 and it works.
Wow.
It's amazingly touching. It's all about one group of 38 of the international flights that were all sent somewhere else because they couldn't come into American airspace. Mm-hmm. They were all landed in this in Newfoundland. There's an airfield in this town called Gander, and in World War II, it was established as a refueling base because none of the planes could get across the Atlantic without refueling. And into the 40s and 50s, even the commercial planes couldn't get back against the jet stream on one tank of gas. So it was the largest airport in North America for a very long time. But then when the airplane technology went and outstripped it, now the planes don't need to land there. And so it's this huge airport with, like, there's no reason for it really. And so they get like between 1 and 3 planes a day generally land there, and that's it. And the town of Gander only has like 9,000 people living in it, so it's tiny. And on 9/11, they had 38 planes land there with almost 7,000 people. So it almost doubled the size of this little town for 5 days. And none of the people on those planes knew what was going on or why. And so it's a microcosm of that event, and it does an amazing job of telling multiple stories. They're all based on true people or composites of true people. It was incredibly touching, but a good chunk of the musical takes place in a Tim Hortons. So I just thought I
chose the wrong donut shop, but okay.
Yeah, well, that's Canada. It's Canada.
That's
I mean,
fair,
you can't be judgmental
pretty authentic,
about that.
then.
So I found it gut-wrenching and heartwarming and really the most affecting musical that I've seen in, like I said, in decades. And I tweeted that out, and several of the cast members and the playwrights have liked it and retweeted it. So
that's cool.
That was cool.
There you go. See? You're more famous than you thought.
No. But I love
that celebrity. I love it.
Anyway, so Russ, that leaves you.
Oh, yeah. So, I finally finished. I was listening to the audiobook Updraft by Fran Wild, and it takes place. It's book one of this Bone Universe series she did, and it's takes place with humans living in these bone towers that grow, and they've been in these towers so long they've forgotten what the ground below them looks like because they're above the clouds, and they live in a world where they all strap these wings on and fly around. And I thought it was going to be great. Unfortunately, it takes a long time to get to the payoff in the end, and the payoff was not that rewarding. So I was a little disappointed in it, and I probably won't be reading the next one, which is a shame because I was really hoping I had something there. But then I got Romeo. Luckily, you'll like this one. I just read or listened to. It's an exclusive. It's an Audible exclusive, so it's only available on Audible by one of my favorite authors, Larry Correia. Larry Correia does a bunch of different books, including the Monster Hunter series. He's done quite a few of the books in
Privateer Press.
Privateer Press, yeah. Yep. But he has this audiobook. It's really short. It's only 2.5 hours, and it's called The Adventures of Tom Stranger, Interdimensional Insurance Agent. This is one of the funniest books I've ever listened to since anything that Douglas Adams wrote. It's very much, it's almost like you could tell that Larry Correia is like, well, Audible's asked me to do a short story, and I kind of feel like I've always wanted to try to write like Douglas Adams, so I'm just going to give it a go. It is fantastic. Now, it is so funny, and I'm going to give one spoiler away just to show you how funny it is. So the book opens on a scene where it's the presidential cabinet. But for some reason, the president is Adam Baldwin, the actor that played Jane in Firefly. And Army Lee, the guy who's the drill sergeant who's in the History Channel, he's the Secretary of Defense. And he's explaining that these aliens are attacking Earth and they're wiping out like whole continents. And he's giving his presentation. He's trying to get everybody excited, and they realize they're doomed. There's nothing they can do to stop them. And the president says, "That's okay. I took out an insurance policy. We're fine." And in walks Tom Stranger, interdimensional insurance agent, and he's there to explain that the United States took out an insurance policy against other interdimensional incursions. And he's here because this is an interdimensional incursion. He will help stop it. And so one of the characters says, "Well, wait, there's other dimensions, like different copies of Earth?" And he's like, "Yep, there are." And he said, "Well, how strange are the other dimensions?" And Tom Stranger says, "Well, let's just say there's actually another dimension of Earth where Firefly only lasted one season, so therefore there was no libertarian cowboy uprising." I was like, the book. One word of caution, though, for those who are not comfortable with anything that gets dangerously close to politics. Larry Correia is very much a conservative. This book very much reflects many of those values and pokes a lot of fun at people who are on the other side of the political aisle. So if that's something that you're not comfortable with, then you might want to avoid this book. If you don't mind,
fair warning.
Then
cover your ears.
Yeah, you might enjoy it. But it is a really funny. Most of it's funny, not based on politics. It's just funny based on that kind of comment. A lot of sci-fi references. A big battle takes place in the middle of a Comic-Con, which is hilarious. And it's just good stuff. So if you're looking for a fun short read, yeah.
I have a question, Russ.
Yes. Yeah.
How did it doesn't cost an entire credit, does it?
Well, you could, but it's only like $4.
That's my point. Yeah, my point. Yeah. My point is like just
pay cash. It's worth it. It's worth every buck and $4. It's worth the price of a Starbucks coffee, which is basically what you're paying, or 2 Dunkin' Donuts coffees. Have you want to
right.
Oh yeah.
Right. So I finished Dirk Gently season 2. We enjoyed it. The payoff in the end was fantastic. But it was a bit slower than season 1, which was unfortunate because I think a lot of people tuned out because it was so slow. And the season, BBC America just announced they would not be renewing it for a 3rd season. So that's a shame. However, I think it's still worth watching. And Craig, you'll like this. There's a strange thing where there's this other universe where people walk around with giant scissors strapped to their hips like swords, to the point where there is sometimes these giant scissor sword fights. And what's really impressive is there's a particularly good scissor sword fight scene near the end where the fight choreography, I mean, someone had to sit down and figure out how people would legitimately fight with giant scissors. And when you think about that for a minute and remember that the sharp bits are on the inside. These are scissors that are big enough that when they draw them from their sheaths, the scissors are closed. So imagine the two pieces, and you're holding it with one hand. Right? So imagine the hilt's the end of the scissors, and then the scissors are up like a sword blade, except the outer edge of the scissors, of course, are not sharp. And you have to unhinge the scissors to make them sharp. So if you think about the kind of things you'd have to do to effectively fight and injure people with scissors, I actually tweeted, I don't know who did the fight choreography in this show, but it's amazing with scissors. So that's pretty good. So I really liked it, but it is and also, well, I won't give any other spoilers out, but I really we enjoyed it, but it is a slow beginning. Also, finished The Punisher. We're talking about more. Talked about Star Wars. Oh, video games. So I am on Act 4 of Shadows of War, the Lord of the Rings game where you play a ring waif melded with a human Gondorian ranger. Loving it. I'm in the final act. Oh my God, it's awesome. Much better story than the first one. Very, very compelling. And I will also say, if you're an Assassin's Creed fan, I have not played it yet, but my daughters are both completely addicted to Assassin's Creed Origins as well. So there you have it. So,
wham bam.
Is that achievements? That's a lot of achieving. Is that
that's almost. I'm gonna not lie. That's a little overachieving.
It might be. I think we have overachieved. Nicely done.
Wow. Well done.
And now, in an attempt to bring a small amount of dignity and decorum to this otherwise base form of entertainment, and I use the term loosely, I am proud to present... Oh, get on with it. It's time for App of the Ep. Seriously, Wakeland? I used to have my own segment, and now I'm relegating to announcing this pap. Hey, you're lucky we still use you.
Hey everyone, welcome to another App of the Ep. This time around I want to talk about a game, I'm not really sure how to describe this thing, but it's called Gorogoa, Gorogoa. And this game is available for iOS, and it's one of those games that's really just amazingly beautiful. The art style in this game is just awesome. And it's one of these sort of simple, I don't even want to say simple, it's a puzzle game, very relaxing, very cathartic, and the art style, again, is just beautiful. And basically the premise of this game is you're looking at pictures. And initially you start looking at one picture, but eventually you're looking at 4 different pictures. And the interesting part is you can slide the pictures around from box to box. So if you imagine 4 boxes, your screen is divided into 4. And you get this really nice art style. And maybe imagine there's this art style like a cityscape. And in the cityscape, there's a window that's lit. And you tap the window and it zooms in on the window. And then you're kind of looking through the window from the outside. And if you drag the picture to one of the other 4 boxes, what ends up happening is the picture frame sort of detaches from the image and becomes a new box. Meanwhile, now you're looking directly into the room, which this then allows you to tap around the room and find other things. And maybe if you take that picture frame you popped off, that window frame you popped off, and now put it overlaid on something else, it creates a window into a new world, kind of like a Narnia sort of situation here. It's extremely hard to describe, but all I can tell you is this is a wonderful, wonderful, relaxing game that I think you really got to check out. It is $5, so $4.99 or $4.50, so it's about $5. But I think it's just for the art style alone, it's definitely worth it. What I really like too is if you look carefully at the game, in the art, in the background, are clues for what you should be doing next. But there's really no instruction. This is very much a game of discovery for you, the player, as well as the characters in the game. So again, I just can't recommend this highly enough based on its art style. It's a very different game than anything else you probably ever played. So I would definitely check it out. And that is, of course... Let me get the name back up here right so I can make sure I do it for you correctly. Gorogoa, Gorogoa on iOS.
Thank you for listening to another scintillating edition of App of the App, a segment in which,
Hey, less of that. More just getting on with the show.
seriously, Wakeland, you are like school in summer. No class.
Hey, welcome back. And of course, you've already heard that we've got Romeo with us, and I know you've been chomping at the bit since you heard him at the very beginning in Rapid Fire, wondering where has Romeo been and what has Romeo been up to? And we are dying to know as well. So, Romeo, it's time for us to dig down into the nitty-gritty and find out what has Romeo been doing with his time.
This sounds like what it sounds like when I go to my proctologist. we're gonna dig deep inside and get everything taken care of.
All right.
That's what.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you may want to put some controls on.
We've gone
It's
all the
gonna
way
be
to PG-13.
fine.
All the parental controls just fired up red on
That's
everybody's
right.
computer.
That's
I
right.
love it.
Little buttons are flashing, and it'll be fine.
Well, I do think our listeners would really like to know like what the latest hotness of the Battlefoam, Romeo. But I think one of the big interesting things since
biggest change.
since the last time we spoke with you, and it's because it's been a while, and so we're excited to have you back here. Is you started doing a lot of really exciting things, and one of the things you did, obviously, we were very close to you on this, was the whole Wild West Exodus game, and now you've that you parted ways with that. What was it like going through that process? What was some of the thinking on moving away from Wild West Exodus and focusing back on Battlefoam?
Well, okay, so to be completely 100% honest and frank with you guys is Wild West Exodus or any miniature company is a tough business to run. And I think anybody that runs or owns a miniature company can relate to that and say the same thing, because it just requires so much complete and total devotion to every minor and major decision, because everything affects the next thing, right? So Wild West Exodus, and Craig knows, I mean, we work together sometimes to the hours of the night. Just to get a plot going in the direction we, the two of us envisioned it going, and then making sure that plot didn't create problems or loopholes or issues later down the line. Well, the business side of it is the same way. If you release model too early or too late or in a different order, or it doesn't play correctly because it needs a buffer from a different miniature, all these things have to work so well. It's such a like an ongoing puzzle that you're playing with, that it requires really 110% effort, and people say that cliche all the time. There's no such thing as 110% because you only do 100% of something. But you really, with miniatures, it feels like you need an extra 10% that you don't have. You need that 25th hour in the day to really get it to work. Well, I didn't even have 24 hours because I had to sleep at least 3, and then I had Battlefoam that took up at least another 1. So I had 20 hours to devote to Wild West Exodus, and that wasn't enough. So seeing that it required the attention and the love, and the community really wanted that attention and love to support it in return, it was probably about a year before we actually parted ways with the company and sent it over to Richard and Stuart and the guys over at War Cradle, was when I first started thinking, okay, how do I pivot from this business in a positive way where the customer and the gamers are never affected in a negative way? The game continues, the vision grows, everybody that's helped on the project like Craig and the rest of the authors we have and even the staff members like our designers and whatnot, they all still retain some of the business in some way, or at least can still help with the team. So it was by no means like a knee-jerk decision. It took a year to kind of really plan out and to find the correct person to take it over, because it wasn't just, hey, who wants this thing? Take it off my hands. And we had offers from a variety of companies. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. Several people came to us when they kind of heard through the weeds that we were interested in parting ways with Wild West, and made offers. Hey, we'll give you this. We'll do this. We're interested in this. And most of the offers outside of Richard and his team were offers of, okay, we want to take all the models you have, we want to sell them and liquidate them and then close the business. To me, that just made no sense, because that had absolutely no vision for growth in the future. And once I got started talking to Richard and Stuart, really, because Stuart is, he's like literally the linchpin in growing the business.
Right.
he was the person that really sold me to it going to War Cradle and the guys there, because he sounded super confident about the project, where he was going to take it. He was extremely excited about it and was motivated to do it, which you got to have that.
Mm-hmm.
And really, he had the time, right? Richard was able to put a person that would spend the time of the day necessary to grow WWX. And
right.
That's what made it a decision that was actually much easier than some would imagine, simply because I knew it was not going to go away. And that was the big thing.
Right.
Right? And Craig, together we worked on so many storylines.
It's a lot of hours, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And so many great characters. I mean, there's so much life in the Wild West Exodus universe, that having that just disappear because lack of time or effort on my part was very selfish. And I didn't want that to happen. So that's kind of how I started transitioning into the decision to do it. And then once we really got down to the brass tacks of it, worked out all the details and how it was going to go over, it was really fast and really smooth. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, I have kind of been out of the loop in the last probably 4 or 5 months, because War Cradle has hired so many great people to take this project on that they haven't needed me. I mean, I had a little bit of input at the beginning when they first took it over to kind of bring them up to speed on what every character did and how they interacted with each other. And from there, they just went ahead and said, look, we got this. You held the bike, but we're flying down the street. We're doing jumps and, loop-de-loops with it. So we got it. And I'm comfortable with that. I'm totally at peace with it because it looks like it's getting better.
Right.
It definitely looks like it's getting. It's great. I think it seems like you got the best possible answer to this, right? Because it just feels like War Cradle. We saw them at Gen Con, just really pushing it. We were impressive booth, impressive tables, really great direction. Clearly passionate about it. So it's nice to see that the world that you dreamt up and the vision of what it was is still going forward. You were able to kind of launch the baby, and now you're able to go back and focus on Battlefoam again.
Yeah, and you know what? That was the other big thing, right? So what seemed to have happened, and this started happening, like I said, prior to about a year before we let go of the company, was the fact that I was noticing a lack of productivity on the Battlefoam side. Although we have great people working at Battlefoam, and they are extremely hard workers, what they aren't are as many creative minds here. Mm-hmm. So we're lacking really the ability to create at the level Battlefoam should be creating. In other words, every single game that comes out, we should have something for it. Mm-hmm. Every box game that comes out that has X amount of miniatures should have something for it. Our partnership should get the love and attention each and every partnership deserves, regardless if it's a small company or one of the big hitters. Mm-hmm. And that was another thing that I noticed was lacking. And I thought, man, oh God, I'm literally crapping on this like really great thing that has so much community support, and we've already done such a good job with it that by not giving it the attention it deserves, it's only going to get bad. And what a waste of a great supportive business to the community as a whole. And that really, I think, made me realize, yeah, this is the right decision. And although my love and passion for Wild West Exodus and the vision of it drove me to create it, it was technically that passion needed to be put aside because it wasn't as important as the overall customer base that we need to support with Battlefoam, because it almost was a little – it sounds a little tacky, but it was almost a little selfish of me to start Wild West Exodus when we had so many fans of Battlefoam.
Right.
And it was by taking it away from there and putting it somewhere else and not giving those people that support Battlefoam and continue to this day to do that, giving them the things they need on a regular basis was kind of a selfish move. So I had to step back, reanalyze, set it all up for what it is now, and now all the cool new stuff is coming out for Battlefoam. So just a pivot and a decision that I think in the long run will benefit everyone, and it seems to so far. It's really great.
It seems super smart, and I think it's really it's great to kind of look, and all businesses go through this, right? When you go through it and you try new things, and then you realize maybe you've stepped a little away from your core competencies, and you want to do what's best for you in the business. And I think it's just it seems like it worked out in a great way, because now you can happily set Wild West Exodus on its way, and the fans of it still get great service and a great game there. Meanwhile, now you can focus on bringing hotness, bringing Battlefoam back to hotness. Although it's always never really left. I would argue, because I've still been buying their stuff regularly. But so what now that you've been able to double down, Romeo, on Battlefoam,
yes.
What are you really focusing on? You mentioned
where are things going?
I also actually, even before that, like maybe. Because you mentioned a couple things there, and like things you wanted to see Battlefoam do that maybe you weren't responding well to, and a couple were kind of interesting to me. And I have noticed recently a lot more of these things. Like I noticed that you guys already have like box inserts out for Company of Iron, which came out like a month ago.
Yep.
So like I see that responsiveness already going up. But like, are you noticing a trend? Like, do you find it was sort of like you guys were mostly doing miniature games with the occasional X-Wing would show up and you do a little for that. Are you finding now that with the changing trends and like more and more like high miniature count, sort of like Soda Pop and Ninja Division and these other big Kickstarter companies that are cranking out high model count, air quotes board games? Yeah, are you guys doing a lot of that? Is that like becoming sort of a mainstay?
That's becoming a regular thing, and you're seeing it even with the standard big companies, right? Privateer Press, Company of Iron, GW now they did what is it? Necromunda that just came out.
Yeah, right.
Obviously Space Hulk, we all know Space Hulk, and the second edition of Space Hulk, and
Shadowspire from GW.
Shadowspire, of course.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of companies have realized that and this is no knock on young gamers, because this I'm an old gamer now. We all are, three of us. God, man, I'm 41.
Happened too fast.
I know, right?
We don't know how old we are.
41.
No.
I know.
41, Greg. Oh, he's old.
I know. I'm so old, you guys. God, I got one foot in the grave already. You guys are definitely dead.
Yeah,
right.
But you know what I mean?
On life support at any rate.
Yeah, barely staying alive, and every day our wrinkles get worse. But
it is true.
What seems to happen is, as the old gamers, I would call us, were the high model count gamers. We wanted to spend 6 months to a year building an army. We wanted to paint that army for 4 months and then finally present it to the gaming group and then kick some butt with it, right? That was kind of the norm maybe 10 years ago, right? We really enjoyed the large-scale model count armies, and that was cool. And now what it seems like, and this is probably more of just society as a whole, everything moves faster, right? The society as a whole, instant entertainment is what people want. They want to look at their phones, they want to get entertained, then they want to turn the phone off and they got to go do their daily thing and then back onto the phone to get entertained again. And that instant gratification of entertainment is kind of slowly being instilled as the norm. People don't have – and I see this in another hobby of mine, which is golf. Golf is become a sport that kids don't want to take up because it's slow, it's boring, it takes 5 hours to do, it's semi-expensive, requires a lot of practice. There's no gratification of that. Kids would rather pick up something like a video game controller. And not that it's a cop-out, because certain guys actually play that stuff competitively and they would kick my ass all over the place. But some kids would rather pick up a controller, get instantly into a game, level up or whatever it is, kick some butt, turn the thing off, go to work, repeat later on. And it requires, not so much practice, but as much as it requires instant entertainment and gratification. So I feel like not only with video games, but in general, society wants to be entertained quickly, and they want to have that fun at their fingertips. And I think board games more today, with the excitement and the ability of graphic designers and digital artists to be able to take miniatures and make them so lifelike at any scale, really, that now these models look so good that it's easy to take 20, 30, 40 models, throw them into a box game, put a good rule set together, throw some tiles in there, and a person can instantly get gratified, have a good time playing a game, bing, bang, boom, box it back up, put it on the shelf, go to the next one. Or come back to it later and it's ready to go. Instead of futzing around with an army, learning all the rules, every model does this and needs this to buffer that, and so on and so on. That's my personal opinion, and I could be completely off track with it. But we have seen that as a manufacturer of storage solutions for all these type of games, we have seen a major trend shift in what we sell. So before, we used to sell, as you guys know, the 1520 XL, the giant bag with wheels, right? It used to hold, 1,520 models plus, and then it would hold how many points of 40K or Privateer Press or whatever game it was. It was thousands of minis in there. And we sell less of those versus small bags that carry skirmish games or small bags that carry board game pieces or board game foam loadouts that we've created for those board games. We're almost trending now 50-50, where it used to be 10 big bags to one little specific game bag or a board game thing. Now it's we sell 5 big bags, we sell 5 board game boxes and foam for those board game boxes. So that's something we've had to adjust to because it makes sense to be able to provide the customer base what they want and what they need. So that's kind of what has happened with us on our end and what we've seen trend-wise.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think it's I think your analysis is right on, but I also think it's interesting to see that the smaller games are now rivaling the bigger ones because, I kind of think of it like Battlefoam is like, you guys are like the Cadillac of transports. So, and so you're going to, traditionally I would expect to attract the larger bag players because those are the players who are hardcore into the hobby, have lots of stuff, and are willing to spend, Cadillac level money on them, just a premium transport. But now it seems like that everybody needs a good transport and they have a lot of smaller stuff, and it sounds like that's starting to be a big part of what you do.
Right, and the thing for us is many years ago we started offering affordable solutions also because we wanted to make sure that everybody was able to afford, our product. And, it wasn't so much about we wanted to make a cheaper product because we still have the same quality guarantees, the same warranty on our foam. All that stuff translates to all levels of our product line. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to give people options. And looking through the numbers and going and analyzing and seeing what made sense, as far as a manufacturing side of the house, it was something that we did years ago to be able to hit everybody in the lineup. If a person had $50 and they wanted to buy a transport for $50, well, we can offer a $50 solution that is just as good in relevance. It will still carry your miniatures. It'll still fit a ton of models. You'll still get the lifetime warranty on the foam. You'll still fit some of the same trays that fit in our other higher end bags. And you can get that for $50-$60. Right. Then if you want to go to the next level up, $100, $150, well, then you move up to the next level. And then if you want to go elite, maybe you go hard cases and, military grade build outs where you're in the $200-$300 range. So we really kind of tried to tailor to everybody's needs so that we wouldn't leave people out or alienate customers based on their budget or what they can afford to carry their stuff in, because that's not fair to them either. So that was one of the focuses we wanted to do. The other focus is being able to allow people to use the actual board game boxes to store their minis by giving them a solution that fits within the box and still keeps everything safe without having to buy a bag. Maybe guys just collect board games and they have a closet full of board games. They still need somewhere to put those minis instead of like clumped up in a corner of the box. Right. So now we do a lot of actual foam for actual boxes for the board game crowd because of the popularity it's gotten so far.
Right. That's awesome. So cool. So we already pointed out you're already now able to respond faster to the new board games.
Yes.
The new Kickstarters and, and Privateer releases company
more agile.
Yeah, you're much more agile. So what other ways have you guys been innovating now that you're fully focused on foam? So it's all alliteration.
Absolutely. So new equipment. So we've bought a ton of new equipment here. And again, not to get too boring with manufacturing things, but some of the equipment we brought in has helped us now cut more efficiently, cut deeper product without scarring the product. We found new ways to actually manipulate the foam so that we can get better, straighter cuts in the foam, and that makes everything better. One of the big news bits that we're kind of going to break with you guys on the show is something that we're going to launch after the first of the year. And right now there's 2 names for this, but we're still voting internally on it. I have my choice, but I won't reveal it because if it doesn't get picked, I don't want to seem like the jerk. Or that I didn't win. You know what I mean? I want to pretend I came up with it.
The boss is always right except when he's wrong.
That's right.
That's right.
Whatever wins, that's what you were rooting for all along.
That's right. And I have a sign on my door that says, if I agreed with you, we'd both be wrong. So I try to point that out to the people when they come in here and start arguing with me on stuff, and then we have to vote, and I get outvoted like 6-1. There's a problem. I have to kick everybody out and say, executive decision's been made, get out. No, I don't act like that. A little bit. Okay. Anyway, so we're doing something new. So one of the things that for years has plagued us as a company, and we don't know where it started and how the rumors kind of started about it and what really started creating this kind of stigma. But we were early on in our inception, the rumors started coming out that we had foam that was abrasive and that hurt miniatures or in some way rubbed miniatures wrong or whatnot. So we looked and we analyzed. We formulate our own foam. So we have a formula with the manufacturer that makes our foam that we tested with them years ago and found that it had just the right amount of call it buoyancy to be able to absorb the squishing factor of another tray on top of it filled with resin models or metal models, and kind of the cushion amount that if it fell off a truck onto a street, it wouldn't just compress into a mushy pancake. Right. So that formula for years has been our mainstay. But some folks, when compared to some of the other products on the market, find it to be the other products on the market are extremely soft, like too spongy, and the product we have is too hard, and it's kind of like the porridge is too cold or too hot. We need porridge that's just right, So we tended for years to kind of just portray to people, guys, number one, there's a warranty on the foam. So if you don't like it, send it back, and we'll take care of it. As long as you haven't used it and ripped it up and beat it up, we'll take care of you. As long, that's what we do anyway. But the key is to make people happy. So what we're launching at the beginning of the year is, again, these are two choices that we haven't voted on. I would love to hear your opinion.
Names are up for grabs, right?
I'll tell you what it is, and then I'll tell you the names.
Right. Okay.
So we're going to be releasing a very, very soft foam that is going to be made in the same tray designs that we have now. When you go to our website, you'll have the choice of standard Battlefoam or this softer material foam. You make the decision. You can have half of your trays soft and the bigger modeled ones, the more denser foam. You can mix and match. You can make the whole case filled with the softer foam. You can make the whole case with your older foam. Doesn't matter. But what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to see a major difference between the two products. And we've been working on this formula for a few months now. But what we're excited about is now this kind of almost fictional stigma, this like urban legend, can be once and for all put to bed. Because if somebody has a concern of that nature, simply select the softer foam when you build out your bag or select your stuff. So for us, that's a huge, huge change because at the end of the day, our customers are who we listen to. So if there's enough of an echo of this rumor, there must be some truth to it at some point. Mm-hmm. Somebody must have had an issue or found it to be abrasive enough to where they didn't like it. And we want to make those people happy and bring them back. So if we can offer them this solution, it's going to be a big deal for us. And it's across our entire range. So every single tray we make in both the U.S. and the U.K. will have this option. Now, are you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
All right. 2 names we're going with.
Okay.
Name number 1.
Okay, wait. So the product is soft foam, and
yes.
and the vote is on the name.
On the name.
Okay. Right. Okay. I'm all up to date. Okay.
The foam's coming no matter what.
Gotcha.
But we got to come up with a name, and there's 2 names on the board.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Remember, the other foam is going to be it's just going to be standard Battlefoam.
Standard foam.
Standard foam. Standard Battlefoam is what we're going to call it.
Right.
All right. So that will be option 1 on your computer screen.
Right.
Gotcha.
Option 2, all right, is ultra soft Battlefoam.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, ultra soft. Kind of sounds like a toilet paper. Garmin, right?
And it does sound like toilet paper.
The excitement is palatable. No.
Right.
All right. The other one is heavenly Battlefoam.
They're both toilet paper
They
brands.
both sound like toilet paper.
They
heavenly Battlefoam or ultra soft Battlefoam. Huh?
Why don't you just go with squeezably soft and bring in the third trademark?
Baby butt soft.
Baby butt soft.
Baby butt. I like it. We'll just call it baby butt for short. The
baby
double
butt.
B.
Right. Squeezably soft.
That's what we're going to be voting on soon. So one way or another, something's going to happen. We're going to get either ultra or we're going to get the heavenly. One or the other, baby.
All right.
So,
okay.
All right.
I like that. This is really cool. I think it's great that you guys are like listening to your customers and giving the feedback, and responding to the feedback on the soft foam. That's cool.
Yeah.
And I think, hey, man, what does it matter to us, right? I mean, if you guys want the foam made out of cardboard, we'll make it out of cardboard. Whatever it takes to be. Who cares? We literally have no love for any one specific product.
I'm imagining, like, Romeo, you guys set up a little robot that rubs foam on a painted miniature for 15 days in a row or something, and then you can look and go, well, look, see, we tested our foam by rubbing it on a robot.
That's my left hand. That's my left hand. That's the robot.
Okay.
That's going in a way bad direction. I already can tell.
Yeah, so moving on.
I want a video, like a little video playing on the Battlefoam website of this robot.
Just a little robot rubbing foam against the model.
Rubbing foam on a miniature.
For hours.
Like
it's
a Golden Demon model,
on.
just like, look, no damage.
We'll do it live on Facebook for like 30 minutes.
That's
just rubbing a model.
There
and
could
be
be
like,
a live stream on Twitch. Just tune in on Twitch and watch foam be rubbed live.
The excitement. And then right next to that, we'll have a pan cam of paint drying.
Right.
Just stream it.
Right. Well, yes. Perfect.
The new storage locker at Battlefoam's being painted. Watch it dry, guys.
Watch it dry while we rub. See, I think there's a whole new industry for you, Romeo. But you want to stay focused.
Focus. Yes.
Don't do streaming foam rubbing. Well, that's exciting. That's cool. So you're gonna come up with a softer foam line. Or you can choose. That's great.
It's just an exciting new thing we want to do.
Yeah,
now, the other cool thing, this is some cool stuff. Two cool things. These are like big things for next year's projects. One of the big things we want to do is all of the panels on the front of our bags right now simply have the Battlefoam name on them. And it's almost very repetitive because almost every bag has a front panel that has kind of a flap and you can put books in the front and so on and so forth. Well, going forward in 2018, we're going to probably release these for Gen Con. They're already in production, but you never know with things traveling across water what's going to happen. But our goal is Gen Con. What we want to do is we want to make that entire front panel removable and offer to people custom embroidery options on the whole entire front panel where our name currently goes.
Yeah.
So what that will mean is if somebody provided us artwork of their choosing, we would have a digitizing fee, which, as you guys know, embroidery requires digitizing. We would have a very minuscule digitizing fee, usually $10-15. And then we would take that logo or that image or whatever it is you want to do, and we would put it on the bag for you, send it back with the panel attached, or you can just buy panels for bags later on. If you already have a bag that has a removable panel, you'll be able to add to it later on. Yep. But what it does is it really lets you customize to the next level. So instead of just having your name across the bag or something kind of boring, like your guys' logo, as complex as the D6 Generation logo is, I know you guys did awesome patches because you gave me one that I actually have stuck onto a bag. You'll be able to literally have that put on a bag from us.
Cool.
If you wanted to give a bag away, or if you guys wanted to have a bag or give these out to people that already have the bag, you can do that too. Or we can do stuff where they're specially licensed, and it makes it very easy for us to license to individual small companies without having to make them order tons of bags or focus on just bag creation for like the next 6 months. It's like, hey, I just need 50 of these because I'm doing a Kickstarter. Perfect. Yeah. Give us your logo. We'll digitize it. Here's 50 720s with your logo on them. Put them on your Kickstarter rewards now. Boom. Fast.
That's super cool, Romeo. That's awesome. We should talk off the air because we got a 10-year anniversary coming up. We got to do some things. But also, that's exciting. That's really cool.
Yeah, so we're looking at that towards, again, we want to launch. The bags are going to be launched for Gen Con, and what our goal is to have all of our embroidery machines up and running properly and somebody here knowing how to use it properly definitely before that. So the service will be available when the bags become mainstream and become part of our general product line. So pretty cool.
That's really cool. That's awesome. I love that. That's cool.
Going to be neat.
Yeah, it's all about the customization. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and why stop with the foam when you can do it all up, and then it really becomes your own personal little bag. So
exactly. That's so great.
The other cool little knickknack that we're happy about and excited about is, I think you guys have probably noticed, we're doing camouflage bags now.
Yeah.
And we just released our bags for this season, which is what we're calling it. So this season's bags was your military jungle camo for Vietnam. It was like our Vietnam camo. And we like it. It's cool. But we are going to change camo patterns on a regular basis, on a limited run basis.
Oh.
So you're gonna these Vietnam pattern kind of camo patterns you have now are only here until they sell out. We only did a 100 bag run, and then they're gone. and then we do the next one. So the next
one,
one,
limited edition kind of thing.
Yes, exactly that. So the next one right now is going to be either an urban digital camo or a desert digital camo. We haven't really decided yet. We're still kind of picking it, but it's definitely going to be a cool urban gray, black, white camo. And that's what we're going to do every 6 months before a big sale. We're going to release a limited edition camo pattern. So
cool.
Kind of like Pokemon, got to catch them all.
Yeah, got to catch them all. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's a very clever way to sell more bags.
I like that.
I need the new pattern.
Right.
Clever indeed, my friend. Right. Clever indeed. So, yeah, and then other little things, obviously we're just, plugging away on foam as things come out. Gosh, go to our, if there's somebody coming on to this and listening for the first time about Battlefoam, we have a new products page. Check it regularly because we release products weekly now. Our cycle of new products literally comes out with the actual games as they come out. Yeah. So, Necromunda, we had the foam the same day the game went public on the Saturday. We had Necromunda foam available. Same thing with Company of Iron. We had the game actually a few months before because we work direct with Privateer Press. So usually anything with Privateer Press that's about to come out, there'll be foam for it when it comes out already.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like the Crocodile or whatever that monster badass model is.
Yeah.
Already have foam for the Crocodile and all the other cool stuff. So that's the rest of our stuff. I mean, we really have the bigger vision in mind right now. A lot of customer service stuff this year, a lot of creative stuff that we want to do this year, and then just plugging away and getting things done for games right as they come out.
Well, that's awesome, Romeo. So much cool stuff. And I've been watching. I mean, obviously we've been big fans of yours for a long time, and we thank you again for all the years of support of the show. But every time we do a Battlefoam ad on the show, I just jump on and look at the website, and I'm always blown away by every time I go on. There's something new to talk about. So it's great. So you can clearly tell. I mean, it feels to me like you guys have always been rocking, but you can definitely see a pickup in momentum over the last 12, 14 months or so.
Yeah.
So it's clear that that you're focused and the team's focused and you guys are really really cranking it out, which is awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and it's fun. We like it. We like making purses for nerds. I mean,
yeah, man purses, merces.
That's what my wife calls them.
Or lady purses, I suppose.
Nurses.
Yeah.
Nurses.
That could get confusing.
Nerd purses. Yeah.
But that's it. That's all that's new, man. That's the latest.
Awesome. Well, Romeo,
that's more than enough, man.
Fantastic. We're going to take a quick break. We'll hear from Total Fangirl, and then we'll be back with Romeo to talk about. We were just talking about a Company of Iron case. How about we talk a little bit about Company of Iron?
Ooh, yeah. Look at how you did that.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, Total Fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy. And Lestat, now there's a vampire.
Hey everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can follow me at Nicole Wakelin and head to our page, patreon.com/the D6 Generation, where you can support the show by making a donation to keep us doing what we're doing. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. We had a great Christmas in the Wakelin household. It involved tons of gaming. We ended up playing games on Christmas Eve. We made all the junk food, like the stuff that you don't eat all year, all the appetizer junk that you see at the grocery store that's really cheap and cheesy. I didn't want to do fancy things. That's what we did. We made goofy appetizers, ate those all day, and played games all day. And then at the last minute, the weather was a little rough for us here on Christmas. We got about 6 inches of snow in a very short amount of time. And the folks who were hosting Christmas decided they didn't want us coming over because it was too snowy. So we did what any rational New Englander would do. We went out in the snow anyway. And we went to my brother-in-law's house where we played more games. So we spent pretty much 48 hours doing nothing but gaming. And it was really fun because it wasn't just Like sometimes it's just the kids playing. Like Russ and his brother and the kids go downstairs and they'll be playing D&D, and I might be sitting upstairs with with his sister, my sister-in-law, hanging out chilling. Well, this time it wasn't like, oh, one group here, one group there. They played D&D for a while. That was part of the deal. They played their campaign for I think like 5 hours on Christmas Eve. It was a long while. But then we all went upstairs and we all played games together. And we were playing some board games. We were playing some goofy games online. We were playing Telestrations, which is one of our favorites and always has been, because it is so funny to watch things get messed up. That is a long-standing favorite game. But the nice thing about it was that everybody got into the act. It wasn't just the kids. It wasn't just the adults. It was the kids and the adults playing together. So we spent our sort of snowed-in kind of sort of Christmas time playing games, which is the perfect thing to do with your family and a perfect way to spend a snowy day, whether it's a holiday or just a typical day in January. So we had a wonderful holiday. I'm hoping that you guys enjoyed your holidays too, whatever it is that you celebrate, and with any luck that you got some time to play games with your family too.
Hey everyone, and now it's time to talk about our friends over at GeekNationTours.com. And as the website says, Geek Nation Tours is really all about love, all about that passion that we geeks have for all the things that we love so much. And what's really amazing about Geek Nation Tours is they take you on those amazing tours focused on your passion. For example, how about the Game of Thrones tour? Or the Adepticon tour, which just closed up. Sorry, you missed that one for 2018. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody at that one every year. How about the Samurai and Anime tour? Who's Your Doctor tour? The Battlefields of the Civil War tour. One of my personal favorites, the Gen Con tour, happening, of course, this summer at the 2018 Gen Con. Terrace and the crew does it every year. And definitely want to check it out. They just opened booking for the Gen Con tour this year. And again, always a blast. We are so privileged and honored to be able to go to the dinner every year. We show up there on the opening night dinner the night before Gen Con kicks off, get a chance to say hi to all the tour members, do some fun things there. Terrace always does an amazing job. The folks at Geek Nation Tours getting some leaders in the industry there, game designers, game publishers, miniature games, board games. A lot of the folks you're going to just can't wait to see at Gen Con. They're there for you, so check it all out. And if you want to see all those details, again, head on over to Geek Nation Tours, click on the Tours tab, and click on Gen Con 2018. That's all at GeekNationTours.com.
You're listening to the Dice Tower Network at DicetowerNetwork.com. More fun than Merchant of Venus. Wait, what?
Who writes these?
Hey, welcome back, and now it's time to talk about really the new hotness from our friends at Privateer Press. And that, of course, is Company of Iron. Craig and I first spotted this. Well, we knew it was coming, but we spotted it in action at Gen Con. It wasn't quite ready for release there, but they were demoing it. We interviewed Will over there at Privateer Press about it. Now I've had a chance to play it 6, 7, 10 times. Seems like quite a bit now. Craig's played it a few times. And of course, Romeo, you've been oogling Company of Iron. Have you had a chance to try it yet, or have you just have your hands on the box at this point?
So we've played around with the minis. Of course, we have to assemble the minis and right. kind of mess with the contents to create the foam for it. And I had a Signal army for years. I had a Minions army for years, so I know the minis. I know how they interact and do that. I think the biggest thing that I liked about this is that from what I understand, because I haven't actually played the game in itself, is there isn't really warlocks or casters in this as much as they're like the little champions, right? Like you're dealing with like a little group of kind of the drones that run around the world of Warmachine and Hordes, and these guys are just kind of got stuck out in the middle of nowhere and they're fighting each other, right? That's kind of what I'm understanding.
Exactly right. There's no not to jump ahead, but exactly right. This is a true skirmish game where each player is controlling basically a unit or two. So
right.
Each side's got maybe 10 to 20 models a side, and that's it. And the rules are, no casters, no focus manipulation, no fury manipulation, no large bases. So you might have like a medium jack, you might have a light war beast, but none of the big stuff at all. So it's really about like a small squad of dudes going up against a small squad of dudes.
Right.
And I think that's awesome, and mainly because you can really get into that concept. Like if you try to envision, here's this, this squad that's been sent out, hey, guard this outpost, good luck. And, they have like a champion that goes out with them who's kind of like the NCO or the leader of the group, and they're minding their own business. And all of a sudden, another skirmish group that comes in from the bad guy's side, whichever you're considering the bad guy's side, it's time to throw, fisticuffs. It's get down and dirty time. I think that's super cool because it really kind of takes the magnifying glass and puts it on every single ant, and you start really looking at the individual battles, and I think that's super cool.
Oh, exactly right.
Yeah.
And let's talk about that some more. So basically, this is clearly, and it's kind of ironic because one could argue that Warmachine, when Warmachine came out, right, it was sort of like the skirmish game in the early 2000s going up against the Goliath of GW, and now over time it's kind of morphed into a giant game itself. I was kind of joking with some of my fellow Warmachine players, like, once your game kind of has figures with the base the size of a DVD, you might be no longer a skirmish game. So what's kind of cool is that this is bringing it back to the roots in a way, but it's also addressing some of the things that some folks who don't care for Warmachine, they're removed from the game. Let's talk about that a little bit too. So it's obviously published this year. It's a 2-player miniature game. Craig, do you want to read the fluffy little back of the box sort of?
I would love to.
Dramatically though, like in the style of some kind of war beastie thing or something.
The style of a
no
war
pressure.
beast?
Yeah. Feral.
Welcome
to Feral. Welcome to war on a new scale where combat is up close, personal, and decisive. Here, battles are fought by just a few worthy warriors in brutal and unforgiving squad-on-squad skirmishes in which every soldier is a hero and every shot counts. Company of Iron is an exciting new way to wage war in the world of Warmachine and Hordes. You'll command a small squad of dedicated warriors and elite champions in a game of fast and furious battlefield action. Increase the combat prowess of your commander with unique upgrade cards and take advantage of powerful battle plan cards for greater tactical options. Small squad size and alternating activations keep skirmishes quick and compelling.
I like how you became a nerdy nerd in the middle there with the list.
You deserve that. Yeah, exactly. Well, he's throwing like 8 different ideas at me, and
deserve that.
The one that stuck, I saw that little goblin guy in my head.
Yeah,
was it
right,
Reinhold? I saw Reinhold. Right. So that was totally Reinhold.
Okay, fair enough.
Just before he throws something at you or used his little spyglass to snipe you or something. I don't know.
The last thing I heard was sound like a war beast, and then the whole time you're reading that, I'm thinking of like a cool Circle Orbris like war beast sounding like that and being completely
okay, yeah, cool, like an alpha werewolf.
Yeah, very unscary.
Alpha werewolf.
Right, yes. It's like that's what
he's like looming over you. There's froth dripping off his muzzle.
Yeah.
He's
like
about to, and then he goes.
So anyway, Romeo, how you been?
Hey, guys. Hold on, let me wipe this drool off my mouth.
Hey, buddy.
Let me wipe this drool off my mouth.
Oh, I'm spitting everywhere, blessed.
Sorry. Oh, my God, I've stained your jerkin.
This lisp is killing me. Holy cow.
Well, that went sideways fast. Anyway, so I think what's most interesting about this is because Company of Iron really allows you to play with the existing range of Warmachine and Horde miniatures.
Oh, that's definitely strength. Yeah.
There's really like 50 ways to get into this game. So one of the ways is to buy the off-the-shelf box. And so the Company of Iron boxed set is $75. You can find it at your local gaming store. It's a bit pricey, but I guess it's about average price for a board game, really. Of course, it's not a board game; it's a miniature game, and it comes with 21 miniatures right in the box. Yep. So for $75 with all those miniatures, plus you're getting 3 rule books. Now these are black and white, booklets, full index, easy to find stuff. There's the core rule book, which tells you the game basics. There's the advanced rule book, which adds things like, how do you handle war beasts and warjacks in the game. And then there's a scenario guide, so when you're rolling up what you're going to play and the rules for the game, for the battle you're about to play, that's all in there, right? What comes in here also that's essential to play, although there are other ways to get them in a moment, is these command cards. So what's interesting about Company of Iron is it adds a card hand management element to the classic Warmachine mechanics, which is sort of interesting. More about that later. You also get a bunch of tokens, which you don't need because as a miniature wargamer, you probably already have these things lying about. But if you're not a miniature wargamer, you get pretty much everything you need in the box, short of a map.
That part kind of reminds me of the kickoff from Steamforged for Guild Ball, because it's got all these tokens and with the icons that you'll recognize from your more expensive plastic and acrylic tokens that you've had for years, but now you've got the full range in one sheet of cardstock that's kind of like really easy to get, and it's a cool option.
Yeah, they even throw a range ruler in there for 18 inches as well, and some D6s. So really all you're missing is some form of terrain to play on, and you still got to assemble the models.
They do throw in the walls, the block walls.
That's true.
So
That's true.
There is a little bit of semi-terrain, at least for blocking line of sight. Well, blocking for, defense.
Yeah, right. And then, of course, in the core box here, you get some Signar models, some Stormblades, and then you also get the Minion Pharaoh. So you're right out of the box. Literally, you're playing Warmachine versus Hordes.
Yeah.
But
you do get two cool models, too, guys. You get Lieutenant Gwen Keller,
yeah,
right? And then I think Agatha or whatever, Queen of Carnage, whatever her name is.
Yes. Yeah.
Which those models are super cool. They're both resin.
Yep.
So the other model is that PVC plastic, which is pretty cool. But the two resin models are super detailed.
And they're unique, right, Romeo? The only way you can get them is in this box.
Exactly right.
And the cards that come with them are playable, because here's the interesting thing about Company of Iron. The cards for the models themselves in the game are essentially identical to Hordes and Warmachine cards. There's a few little nuanced rules in there for some mechanics, but most mechanics are identical. So you can pretty much take these models out and use them in your Warmachine and Hordes games too, which is pretty cool. Go ahead.
They look cool.
Yeah, they look fantastic. They're really nice models. You can't tell. It's not like these are like some kind of board game version of the Warmachine models. These are Warmachine and Hordes models in a box. Now, what's also cool is, so you could pay $75, get two sort of, factions to play, and everything you need to play the game, or if you already own Warmachine and Hordes, what's really cool about this is the rules. The PDF files for the 3 rule books are all available online, so you don't need to buy those. And the cards, which you do need to play, the actual new hand management cards, more about those in a bit, are $15 for a deck directly from Privateer Press. So you really, if you're an existing Warmachine and Hordes player, you really just got to order that $15 deck, and you're ready to start. You don't need, because you can download the PDF files for the rules. So there's a very low cost of entry to try this thing out. And of course, you can go right to privateerpress.com and read the rules and start to see if it's the kind of thing you want also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one other thing too, just to point this out, because you're talking about downloading the cards. So if anybody goes to the Privateer Press website and goes to the card bundle or the card database place where you can get all the cards, these two models, these special characters, are there as playable regular solos. So like Lieutenant Gwen Keller has her 2017 version 1 card on there. So if you wanted to get her and use her literally in a standardized game, you're more than. It's just an easy 2-second download from the website.
That's right. And if you own War Room, the Warmachine and Hordes app for iOS and Android, those models have cards in there as well. And they just released, literally a couple days ago, a Company of Iron mode for the War Room app, along with all the cards updated for Company of Iron. You do have to pay a little, so you can pay if those remember who have War Room, you can pay fees for either one particular army faction, or you can pay a bundle fee and get all the cards for all the factions digitally. But then also now with Company of Iron, you got to pay again because technically they're card updates, but it's pretty affordable. I think I got the entire Company of Iron range of cards for $20 for all factions, both Hordes and Warmachine, so it was pretty cheap. So what's nice about that is now you've got everything you need to play rules-wise pretty much in War Room. And you've got now an army builder also built right into War Room as well. So you're pretty much ready to rock if you want to go that route also.
Yeah.
So very approachable and ready to get started. Now, what's really interesting about the game, and we kind of hinted this already, is when you're building your force, there are some rules. First of all, what's interesting is they didn't change the point values of anything. So the game size for this is small. It's a 20-point game. or a 25-point game. But those are Warmachine and Hordes points. So basically, in my first 5 to 6 games of Company of Iron, I was looking at my actual Warmachine and Hordes cards and just looking at the point values on them. And what happens is they then have the rules translations in the 3 rule booklets for all the different things. So you can literally take a Warmachine or Horde card and play it in the game. So what you're going to do is when you're building your force, you're going to build a 20-point force for your first game probably. And there's some rules about what kind of models you can choose. You can't choose anything that has focus or fury manipulation. So right out of the box, no warcasters, no warlocks, no junior warcasters, none of that. All that's out.
Right.
Your models have to be able to move, so nothing stationary. So you can't pick standing stones or anything like that. And no large bases. So medium bases are okay, because a lot of people make the mistake, they see no large bases and they think, oh, I can't have warjacks or warbeasts. No, you can, but you can't have large base ones. So medium bases.
And they can be brutal.
Oh, yes. Also, there's such an interesting rule that you might miss, there's no duplicate units. So you can't take 2 units of gun mages, right? You can take 1, but you can't take 2. Also, unless it's a card that says you can have 1 to 3, then you can do that. But basically, when you're buying these things, you're still buying them in the squad sizes that are indicated in the card. So, for example, if you're buying Storm Knights and you could choose either have 6 or 10, for example, you can choose either of those sizes and you have that many on the table. And you're not buying any sub units. You're buying the units still whole, but you're just only buying 20 points or 25 points, depending on your game size. Making sense so far, Romeo?
I'm 100% with you, buddy.
All right. So there's a couple of things you want to consider also, though.
Hello?
Yes.
He's on your 6.
Excellent.
Is this still on?
Yeah, we got you. So awesome. So I'm glad you're following along. So next thing we're going to do is, when you're building your list, though, Romeo, there's a few advantages you can get if you go under points. So if we're playing a 20-point game, and I get exactly 20 points into my list, and you only get 19, actually there's a little compensation for that, because if you're underpointed from your opponent, then during this hand management thing, so each round you're going to have a hand of cards that's going to really let you do some cool stuff. More about that later. But if you have less points than your opponent, when you draw back to your hand size, you can draw an extra card and discard one. So you're getting a little more control of what you get in your hand. Also, there's some bonuses to being outnumbered. So if you're outnumbered 2-1 by figures in your opponent's army, then you get an extra card in your hand size. And if you're outnumbered 3-1, you get 2 extra cards in your hand size.
And does that adjust as the game goes on?
No, that's list building.
That's list building. Gotcha.
Yeah. Now, also, one thing to remember is there's a minimum model count of 3. So no matter how you built your list, you got to have at least 3 guys. So you can't take one super high-powered solo for your all 20 points.
That would be one hell of a high-powered solo.
I'm trying to think of how that might. Well, I guess a medium warjack and a solo might be able to pull that off. So
I think a key thing here is that finally being short gets you compensation. So that's a very big, very positive thing.
Very big thing. There's one other concept they introduce here into list building, and that's this idea of requisition costs. So if you go to the Privateer Press website, you will see there's a PDF file in the Company of Iron section that lists every single unit and solo and medium-sized base model for Warmachine and Hordes, along with a requisition cost. Now, requisition cost is a 0, +1 or 2, or -1 or 2, right? And what this really means is it's adjusting your hand size based on certain units. So what they started figuring out when they did play testing was that some units, because the model count is so small and the tables you're playing on is so small, it's only 30 by 30 inches, that certain units might have an ingrained advantage, like really long-range guns that shoot multiple times or heavily armored troops and things like that. So what they've done is those, they don't change the point cost because they wanted to use Warmachine and Hordes points. So instead what they did was they said, well, there's a hand modifier if you take this unit, and by the way, it's cumulative. So if I take 2 units, they each have a requisition cost of -1, my hand size is down 2 from its default hand size of 5 in a 20-point game. But there's also units that are considered to be a little underpowered, and they'll give you pluses. So you might have a unit that's a requisition cost of +1. So by taking that unit, I'm getting +1 to my hand size. And if I take a unit that's +1 and I take another unit that's -1, then I have a net 0. My hand size stays the same. This is a pretty clever mechanic, because as you'll hear when we describe what the cards can do, the cards are super powerful. Because think about it this way for you Warmachine and Hordes players out there. Because there's no focus and fury in this game, How do you boost? The answer is the cards, right? So you're essentially sitting on a hand of cards, let you do things like reroll dice, boost your dice, add dice to the pool, things like that. And as a Warmachine and Horde player, you know all those sorts of things, super powerful. And they're all about luck mitigation. So basically, you think of it this way. A +1 requisition means +1 boost per round for a player versus his opponent, potentially, right? So that's big doing.
Right.
So that's pretty much list building. So it's not really that complicated. You're using the Warmachine and Horde points. You're going for 20 of them.
Now, Russ, where are the requisition costs located? Are they in one of the 3 rule books?
No, there's actually a third file on the Privateer Press website.
Oh, you have to go on the website to get that?
But there's another place where
I don't
they
like
exist.
that.
Yeah, well,
I don't like that.
I can hear the disappointment in your voice, for God's sake.
Well, the second place they're found is in the War Room app. So if you go in the War Room app, the rec costs
if I'm going to spend $75, I want what I need to be in that box.
That's the only piece. Well, what you need is in the box because you play with the models in the box and their requisition costs.
That's clever. Right. And I don't. One of the very few places in my life I don't appreciate clever is as a consumer.
Yeah, so
that's clever. You're right.
Well, no, everything you need to play is in the box. But if you're going to use beyond the box, right, you got to go to the website.
I get it, and I understand why they're doing it because they're the whole thing about touting that you can change. They can change the cards, and they're very agile and quick on their feet.
Exactly.
And I get that, but at the same time, I don't like it.
Yeah.
No, sir.
Yeah, you do got to go to their website. Or now, what I did also was. But I've been doing this for a while now. Privateer Press has made all their rule books digital for a long time. So I have PDF versions of all their stuff on my phone. So I just bring it up and reference it all that way. So I've got to get used to that. So you throw it on your tablet or your phone, and you just have it with you. But you're right. I mean, but it is free. So
two things real quick. So for people that haven't caught it, can you walk me through where it is on the website for that? Because I want to follow it up. I want to see what you're talking about.
Privateer.
So where do I go? Okay, I'm there.
PrivateerPress.com. I'm going to walk you. I'm going to go do it myself. So I'm on the PrivateerPress.com website. I believe you can actually get there faster by doing /rules.
Okay.
And that takes you right to the Privateer Press rules. But if you forget, when you first go to the Privateer Press website, you'll see that Company of Irons on the left-hand side. On the Privateer Press /rules site, when you scroll down, the first thing it says is Warmachine and Horde rules books because all the Warmachine and Horde rule books are also fully available for free on their website. But right below that, you'll see Company of Iron rule books. And the first link is the core rules. The second link's the advanced rules. The third link's the scenario guide. The fourth link is the requisition costs. And the fifth link is the addendum, which is basically already
I'm not
FAQ.
seeing that, though.
What are you not seeing?
I went to their website,
yeah,
and I saw Company of Iron. Underneath that, it says Company of Iron again, or contest rules.
No.
Click on Company of Iron. It brings me to the Company of Iron site or page on their site. I'm not seeing.
Yes.
Where am I?
Privateerpress.com/rules.
Yes, that's the easiest
way.
Right.
Privateerpress.com.
Right, but my point is, privateerpress.com is still not getting me there. That's my point. Because you said you're going to walk. You're going to. I'm going to walk you through.
Yes.
One of their websites.
Back up there.
But wait, let's jump and
for you English teachers in the audience. Go to privateerpress.com.
Yeah, go to privateerpress.com/rules and you're there. How about that?
Yes, that will work. If you go to the home page and click Company of Iron, then you scroll down and read the little paragraph. There are links to all the other things there too. There you go.
I love it. Triggered. Yes.
Right. Yeah, triggered. I am. I need to back off for a moment.
And download the PDF files. Put them on your phone. Go.
Company of Iron coloring book.
Real quick.
And a coloring book. Yes.
We're gonna the last thing I'm gonna do before this show ends tonight. I'm gonna tell you guys a very funny story. You have to remind me that has to do with cellular phones because I've made a switch. I'm not gonna tell you which way I've switched, but I've made a switch after 10 years.
All right.
And I'm gonna blow your mind with something. So remind me.
Well, I'll remind you. We'll do that for the blooper. I think that'd be hilarious. All right.
Okay.
So now that you've downloaded all the PDF files. Which may or may not frustrate you. Next thing you want to do is...
The requisition costs 6 pages long.
Yeah, because there's bajillions of models, Craig. It's called Wealth of Choice. This game has got so much depth to it because you have the entire range of almost 20 years of models.
My God.
All right. So anyway.
Jesus.
He's complaining about 3 rules and too many options.
I don't want 5 types of cheeses. I want American cheese only because I'm American, for God's sake.
America.
Well,
what is this? What is this?
What is this smorgasbord of stuff here to choose from?
Who eats Gouda anyway?
Got like 20 factions and 8,000 units to choose from here.
All right, anyway. The two of you. The cross references are killing me here.
All right, moving on. So to play the game, it's actually, if you're already a Warmachine and Hordes player, you're going to jump right in. Even if you're not, what I've always been a fan about Warmachine and Hordes, the core mechanics of Warmachine and Hordes are dirt simple and pretty much brilliant. So this game just adds a layer on top of that, while removing a lot of the complexity of warcasters and focus allocation and fury and all that stuff. So, first of all, there's your mission setup. Go ahead, sorry.
You talk about terrain?
About to. So, mission setup. So, when you want to set up your table and get ready to play, you're looking at a 30-inch by 30-inch play area, so a nice small surface, which is already great.
Not to be the naysayer here.
Yeah, wow. Yes.
That's annoying also because you've got my collection, I have a whole bunch of 36 by 36 inch mats.
Yeah, right.
So it's annoying that I'd either have to mark them up or mark them out, so I don't like that either. I don't like that either.
You go to our friends at Table Wars who already have a special company of iron mats out that are 30 by 30. Now,
do they really?
Yes, they do. I've already ordered one because it's awesome. But you don't have to, because also if your mat's too big, what do? You just measure in and make it as small as you want.
Yeah, that's aesthetically pleasing. Am I right? Am I right?
Wow. Anyway, so you measure out your play area on whatever surface you prefer. Now, in the mission book, there are 6 different missions that you have, and you can roll against them. So you roll your mission up. You're going to deploy your terrain. In most cases, you want really heavy terrain. So they really talk about this in that book. 6 to 8 pieces, preferably, almost all blocking line of sight. 5 by 6 pieces of terrain, and this is a 30 by 30 play area. So they're really trying to get you sort of like, think Necromunda. You want a lot of terrain on the table so people are forced to maneuver, not just sitting there having gun battles. So that's your setup. What's interesting about this is there are restrictions in the missions around the number of models that can take advantage of the advanced deployment rule and the ambush rule, which are core mechanics in Warmachine and Hordes that essentially work the same in Company of Iron, but the distance you get to deploy beyond the deployment zone, for example, for advanced deployment is shorter, and there's a model maximum. So because you basically got a single unit of let's say 10 guys, for example, if the entire unit has advanced deployment, which often happens in Warmachine, that means your entire army has advanced deployment. So to kind of balance that, they'll say, in this particular scenario, the attacker can leverage up to 2 models using advanced deployment, and the defender maybe uses 1 or something.
Company. Table War has like a whole collection of
course they do.
Company of Iron mats. Of course
they do, because this game's awesome. So it's like Battlefoam cranking out the stuff for the box.
Look at that. Yeah.
So you got your play area set up, you got your terrain set up, you're ready to play. So the first thing you're going to do is determine priority. Now, some of the missions, priority is determined based on the mission and who's the attacker and who's the defender. But in other missions, in most missions, you're going to roll a d6. High roll has priority. The priority player is going to deploy his entire force first. But what that allows but he also has the knowledge of he's going to move first, or she's going to move first. Then the defender deploys his or her force, and you're ready to begin. Typically, the deployment zones are much smaller because you're playing on a smaller surface. So it's more like 3-inch to 6-inch deployment zones as opposed to the typical more like 7 to 10-inch deployment zones you see in Warmachine and Hordes.
Right.
I already mentioned you got limited. They limit the amount of ambush and advanced deployment you can take advantage of. Missions are also typically 5 rounds, but here's the interesting thing, Romeo. Ready? Rounds are not player turns. So this game has integrated turns. So what that means is, if Romeo, you've got priority, you're going to activate a model, you're going to move it, you're going to attack, and then you're going to stop. And then I'm going to activate a model. I'm going to move it, I'm going to attack, and then you're going to activate another model. So we've got integrated turns where classic Warmachine and Hordes is you go, I go. I move my entire army and attack with my entire army. You move your entire army, attack with your entire army. So this is now an integrated turn system, which already makes the game feel very different, a lot more, I guess, current.
Absolutely.
And really changes the feel, which in a very good way. So I really like that part a lot. And so a round then ends after both of you have activated all your models. So Craig's going to activate a model, I'm going to activate a model, back and forth, until all of us have activated both our models, and then we that's the end of a round, and all the round ending things happen. Now, interestingly, they have a little cool mechanic in here which very simply fixes sort of a problem in some of these integrated turn systems, which is if I have 15 models and Romeo has 10 models, we're going back and forth and back and forth. When we get to the 10th model, Romeo's out of guys, and I still have 5 more to activate. So if I play my cards right, I can really force Romeo to activate all of his cool stuff first, and I can wait until my best guys go, and then I can really control the situation simply because I outnumber him. So what they do in Company of Iron to offset that is that at any time it's your turn to activate a model, and your opponent has more remaining models to activate than you do, you can choose to pass, and then you can activate that model later. So you always have the option to kind of delay your action as long as you have less models total to remaining to activate than your opponent does, which I thought was an interesting mechanic.
There's a lot of this that we used in Wild West Exodus, Craig.
Yeah.
A lot of this mechanic, the back and forth, the kind of playing against the ferocity of your opponent's willingness to push his models into the game faster, and then eventually kind of playing coy or possum and then just jumping on him after he's run out of moves was one of the main mechanics in Wild West Exodus. So that's really interesting that they've adopted that, because I've always felt Warmachine and Hordes was a reactionary game where somebody beat the bejesus out of you, and then you're like, holy friggin' A, I lived through that. Right. Okay, now I get to come back at you. And there was that, like, watching, pain just being inflicted, which was also one of the cool things. If you put yourself in a pickle and somebody came and just had a great selection of moves, they can really take care of your army in a second. And like in MK2, when you used to have a caster kill on turn 1 kind of deal,
right.
I always felt like it was something like this. I think my thought is I think Privateer might even look at this for MK3 when they do the new rulebook in a few years. I'm sure that some of the playtesting will develop into the main game in some sense.
It might. I like this a lot because, to your point, Romeo, there's a lot of modern games. Yeah, I think of the games that Craig and I really enjoy now, where they all have a lot of them have integrated turn systems, right?
Right.
And so you think about we like Rune Wars, right? And so it's an initiative-driven system where I don't move my whole army. I move everybody a certain initiative step, or X-Wing does the same thing. Or you look at a game like Infinity or Dust, or there's a bunch of them. Yeah. So I like this bringing those core mechanics I like of Warmachine and Hordes, which is the super simple roll 2d6, add a stat, do you beat your opponent's defensive value? Yay, you hit them, kind of very simple thing. And then the boost mechanic of add an extra die and you increase your probability and mitigate your luck. That's all still there, but now you've got this added cool thing of the integrated turn, which is really fun.
Very
so you've got that. One thing you also mentioned, Romeo, it's worth pointing out, now that I've talked about missions and scenarios, is there is no warcaster, so there is no caster kill. One thing I also forgot to mention, you do have a leader, though. And in addition to these cards, you're also going to have a set of leadership upgrade cards. And each player gets to choose one of these leadership upgrade cards and apply it to their leader. And your leader of your force can either be essentially the sergeant of one of your units, or he can be a solo. And by adding this card, you're going to increase his base wounds by some number. So that's one way you can turn your sergeant, who's typically a 1-wound model of one of your units, into a bit of a more robust guy, because now he's got +5 wounds. But it also gives them all kinds of crazy special rules. Like, Craig, do you have any examples of the leadership cards?
Yeah, there were a lot that are very cool, that really kind of dictate your turn. There was one where, there's two. They come in two flavors, right? They have one that's keyed off of your leader's leadership. Mm-hmm. So it's going to affect models within a certain radius of the leader model. But then there's others where you pick a unit.
You're jumping ahead. I was thinking of the card that you assign your leader at the beginning of the game.
Oh, those. Sorry, yeah, those. There's only 6 of them, right?
Right. Yes.
And those are a lot more difficult for me to take, to make my choice from, because they all seem to, they all add 5 wounds. Mm-hmm. So your model's going to have a minimum of 6 wounds running around on the table, and then one is really good at manipulating your hand of command cards. One is really good at dealing with the missions, so that your models within his leadership are going to be able to take sometimes in some of the missions there's mission specific actions you can take, like to pick up a crate or something like that. One of them is within his command radius. I believe you have to be within his command radius. You can do that for free. So there's one that's like really good at giving your force stealthy kind of effects that make them more like predators. One's really good at just combat. He's like a beast out there, runs into the middle. So they're really kind of they're cool because they're not faction specific. So no matter what faction you have, you can kind of get your guy. It's like a customization, which is not available in Warmachine or Hordes, where now it's almost like old school 40K, where this is kind of like your war gear, for your commander. So your commander is now going to be more of a character that you're creating, and what kind of person is he? That's what I like. Yeah.
I like that a lot too.
My favorite was you could use two. Normally, you can only use one command card a turn for its overall mission effect.
The battle plan. Yes.
The battle plan. But this guy, in one turn per game, can use two. So you can have two of these crazy powerful cards active at the same time, which was awesome. Which I'm sure we'll talk about in a moment.
Yeah, and some of them give you kind of a feat-like ability too. Like once per game, your commander can do this also, right?
Yeah.
Now, one other thing that's pretty cool is there is no coherency in this game. So even though you're playing with a unit, you can spread your models out as much as you want. Because the idea is this 10-man squad is off spread all over the small battlefield doing their thing. So there's no unit coherency. You can put the guys any way you want. But as Craig hinted at, some of these cards you can use make cool things happen for models within your leader's
some of the abilities that the units normally have.
Right. So there's reasons why, and recovering from wounds, more about that in a bit, also happens by proximity. So there's a push and pull in this game with wanting to spread out so you can cover more objectives faster, versus by staying close you better support your troops and get better synergies. So it's a neat mechanic. So the fact that there's no coherency doesn't mean you shouldn't be thinking about your groupings and your placement. Making sense so far, Romeo?
Totally 100%.
All right, sweet. So now let's get into the round. So what happens now is at the start of the round, which again is before anybody's activated, each player is going to draw their hand of cards, which is in a 20-point game, it's 5 cards, and in a 25-point game, it's 6 cards. But then, of course, your hand size is going to be modified by that requisition cost I talked about earlier, plus maybe any massive model count advantage. But typically, both players are drawing 5 cards. Now, it's probably worth pointing out what's on these cards right now. So as Craig hinted at, there are the cards are divided into 2 sections, a larger top half, which is called the battle plan, and a lower bottom half that's much smaller that's called an asset. Now, the assets are really, you can basically play the card in one or two ways. You can play the card as a battle plan, or you can play it as an asset. Assets can be played at any time, and pretty much they're things like boost a die roll. And for non-Warmachine and Hordes players, boosting a die roll simply means you add an extra D6 to the roll. And since the core mechanic of Warmachine, whether you're rolling to hit or rolling to do damage, is simply roll 2 dice, add the attacking model's appropriate statistics, like their range combat skill or their melee skill, to that number. And if that number exceeds the target number on your opponent's card, you hit them, then throwing a third die into the mix really increases your chance of hitting, right, or doing damage. So this boosting mechanic is really, really cool. Mm-hmm. The other things down there include a reroll, which is very powerful, obviously, because if you roll really 3 ones, you can roll that again. It also includes things like the ability to overcome bad casualty rolls, more about those later, and other really cool sort of reactive things. Yeah. And then also the top half, though, is this idea of the battle plan.
Yeah.
Now, you can only play one battle plan per round, unless you got that one special ability Craig mentioned. So you have to choose carefully, but these battle plans are pretty cool. Like against Rafe the other day, I had a battle plan. It wasn't called this, but I felt it was called Low and Slow, and it was all models within your leader's command range gain stealth. So you can imagine, like, he just said, everybody down into the weeds, and they're crawling towards him. And Rafe had a bunch of long range dudes, and all of a sudden he's like, oh man, I can't see your guys. So it's kind of a neat fluffy sort of thing. It only lasts for a round, but for the rest of this activation, I've got that going on. Yeah. Now there are other cards that are like, aim carefully and you ignore stealth, right? So this is these things, but if he's already played his battle plan, he's locked in, right?
Yeah.
And the real conundrum is sometimes the top half of the card, the battle plan, is awesome, but the bottom part of the card on the battle plan is like a reroll, and you really kind of want to save that for later this round. And what's interesting is that hand of 5 has got to last the entire round. So I'm going to activate all my models. Let's say I've got 10. And Craig's going to activate all his models. Let's say he's got 10.
Yeah,
right?
that seems to be the average.
That seems to be about average. So all these activations, there's going to be 10 attacks each, 10 moves each, all the reactions for rerolls and boosting and everything. You're going to want to save those for the right moment. So spending these cards is a really big deal, right? So you're only going to be able to, you only have half the number of models you have on the table, and sometimes they're not going to work out. You're not going to have the right card for the right situation. So spending those cards and that hand management is a big part of the game.
I mean, it's kind of like having that, your feat for your caster and your warlock, right?
Exactly,
so you got to know when to pop that feat. If you go early, obviously you can end up in a situation where you're going to be hamstrung later in the game. Or, if you pull it off at the very end of the game, do you have enough units to really utilize it in a positive way? So it's kind of like that mechanic in a kind of slight way for a guy that normally can't have special feats. So the cards kind of almost act like feats, which is cool.
They act like feats, and they also act like your focus and your fury for boosting. Right?
Yes,
it's kind of like that floating around too. But what's neat is you can boost any roll or any attack or defense roll. So now normal infantry guys are boosting, so they feel more like heroes. You got everybody's a hero in this game, kind of. So basically, you start off the round, you draw your hand size up, you're looking at all these cards, drooling over all the cool options they're giving you, and now it's time to start activating models. In the first round of the game, priority is dictated by the mission typically, but in later rounds, at the start of each round, you're going to roll a die to see who's got priority. So you don't always know in the start of the round who's going to activate first. But who's ever got priority is going to activate their model, they're going to move it, they're going to attack, they're going to be done, and then their opponent's going to pick a model, move it, and attack it. You probably want some tokens here to mark who's moved so you don't forget who's already activated for the round. And you're going to keep going back and forth until all players have activated all their models. Now, I'm not going to jump into all the Warmachine and Hordes mechanics here because essentially they're the same as Warmachine and Hordes, which I've already described. The attack and defense mechanics, really pretty simple. There are a few tweaks to many of the rules. One of the interesting adds is there is now a long-range dice modifier in the game. So if you're shooting over 8 inches, it is a -2 to hit. So you need to aim just to have a base chance to get the same number to hit normally. This ends up having a major effect of the game, but I think it's there so that you're not long-range sniping people all the time, right? It really keeps the game a little more interesting when you get closer. The other big mechanic change, the huge mechanic, is the idea of casualty rolls. So this idea clearly came to the guys at Privateer Press. They're fans of the Mordheim and Necromunda world, where you don't want just one shot, one kill a guy. You want your models to be a little more robust. So whenever you shoot, you hit a model, and it would be its last wound, and the model has failed any rolls it might have when its last wound is removed, like toughness rolls and everything else, and it's about to be removed from the table as dead. Instead of removing the model from the table, you make what's called a casualty roll. And a casualty roll, you're rolling a D6. On a 1 or a 2, the model is out, and you remove it from the table, dead.
Yep.
On a 3 or a 4, the model is...
This roll will be very familiar to old players of Necromunda.
Yes. So on a 3 or 4, you are injured. So there's a special injury token, but you can mark them with a bloody token or whatever you want. The model is injured. When a model is injured, it is considered knocked down per normal Warmachine rules. But in addition, it can't be targeted from over a half inch away because basically you think the guy's dead. And also, however, if an attack does hit an injured model, so if you're attacking with a melee weapon or you're attacking with a range attack within a half an inch, the model is automatically hit and automatically removed from the table. So you basically can cut their throats at close range. And if you go to activate a model who is injured, you must roll on the casualty table again. And if you roll a 1 or 2, he's dead. If you roll a 3 or 4, he stays injured. And if you roll a 5 or a 6, either case, you add a wound back to the model and it's just knocked down. So basically, injured models, 1 or 2 you're dead, 3 or 4 you're injured, which really incapacitates what you can do a lot. And a 5 or 6 you're knocked down, but otherwise you're okay, right? Now what's interesting is on the bottom half of some of those cards I was talking about earlier, one of them is Recover, which makes you automatically get a 6 in your casualty roll, but you can spend it after you roll the die.
Which is huge.
So between some cards which say reroll and that card which turns a casualty roll into a 6, you got a pretty good chance of mitigating, oh God, I'm about to lose a major guy, right?
Yeah.
So your models, so you're really playing
and then
to the
there's
mission.
there's a card that you can use that's Shake.
Yes.
That discards the knockdown. So that's you can, with a couple of the right cards, you can bounce back completely and be ready to fight.
Right. But that trick, like for example, that would take 2 of your 5 cards,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Which is expensive. But yes, you can shake. There's a shaking card, which is kind of like you use focus or fury to shake effects of War Machine. But injured is not a shakeable effect, which is interesting. So you really have to getting out of that's a little tricky. Now, one thing about the casualty roll, when you later make that casualty roll, let's say you got to activate an injured model, the first thing you have to do is make a casualty roll again. You get a +1 to that casualty roll for every base-to-base model with the injured model. So you basically can send some guys in there. Friendly, right. So
it's not like desperation and adrenaline. Holy crap!
Right. So you can basically send some guys in there to help them out. Now, there's some other cool mechanics in the game, too, on the casualty roll that I only discovered because I was playing Rafe with Kador. So Kador's got some models out of these gas poison grenades. And what was cool was Rafe was using the War Room app, and so it had the updated cards. And so he looked at his gas grenade, and it says, oh, this version of the gas grenade, when I use it, it's -1 to casualty rolls. What does that mean? I'm like, oh, crap, right? So -1 to your casualty rolls, huge. So it's kind of neat. There are mechanics built in, and the more you try different variety of War Machine models, you're going to find this. There are ways to mitigate the luck of the casualty roll. There's also ways to enhance it and make it worse. And there's actually one of the cards in your hand you can play, too, that's like shoot to kill, which also gives minuses to the casualty rolls of opponents that turn, things like that. So there are pros and cons to that, but it's an interesting mechanic. And I do like the coup de grace aspect of it. So if you really are on the guy, you can wipe him out. And what you find yourself doing is, after you play the game a few times, is getting in a position to attack a model with 2 dudes. So the first model like charges him and injures him, and the second guy walks up and cuts his throat. It's like a little assassination team.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the turn. We're going to go back and forth activating all of our models. At the end of the round, after both Romeo and I have activated all of our models, we're going to, if we have any cards left in our hand, we can choose to discard any we don't want to keep, and then we draw back to our hand size, and we're ready to rock the next round.
Yep.
Make sense, Romeo?
Absolutely.
That's the game. I mean, that's Company of Iron. And because the guys are pretty hard to kill, I mean, I've been tabled. Craig tabled me. And actually, Tim Colonna tabled me.
It's not easy.
So it's tableable. But really, the games most games are 5 rounds long, which sounds like a lot, but as models start dying, it gets much faster. And it's actually not that long of a round anyway, because you're very engaged, because the integrated turns, you don't really find yourself waiting long, right? It's like, I'm done.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But also, what's cool is, so you're really playing for points. 'Cause you're trying to get and a lot of the missions are like, there's 2 objectives here. If you end the turn with a model base to base, you score a point. If you end a turn or if a model goes there and does an action, it scores a point. And what's neat too about the game is they've made standard bearers pretty cool. So in basic War Machine and Hordes, there's that thing called, I can't remember what they call it, over-controlling or something, where if your Warlock or your Warcaster's controlling an objective, you get double victory points. So since there's no Warlocks and Warcasters in this game, they did it with standard bearers. So some of the missions, you get bonus points if the standard bearer happens to be the one on the objective, which is kind of cool. It makes the standard bearers have a little more fluff to them and a reason to take them as well, which is pretty neat.
Very cool. I like it. I haven't played it yet, but what I like about it is I love the idea of the kind of the microscopic battle that shows the importance of every single little guy in a story or in a faction or in a world, and it really brings to light like the small grunt who doesn't get the attention in a big game now is the game, and that's very freaking cool. Love that.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. And let's get into our final thoughts, Romeo. And so what we'll do here is we'll have Craig give his final thoughts. I'll give my final thoughts, and then Romeo, we'd love you to chime in after you've heard all this stuff. Kind of let us know what your thoughts are on your desire to play and try the game out. Now,
and Russ.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
In the mode of a war beast.
Yes.
Try to explain the D6 generation rating system.
Yeah, pick the same one I gave you, really?
Well, everybody's saying I screwed mine up, so I want to hear your example. What would a war beast sound like? And I'm not giving you 3 or 4 different just the war beast.
Right. Dire troll here. When I'm going to eat some pig, a little small pig, maybe a light snack, I like to rate my pigs on the quality of taste. So a nice lean pig that's maybe been running around too much. The problem with that is it's too sinewy. So I might rate that as I would enjoy that on maybe a 5 or a 6 on a D6. Because sometimes they're a little tasty, but it's not good odds, right? But later, if I get a nice fat pig that's been sitting there all day, getting nice and tender, maybe sitting a little close to the fire and starting to accidentally roast his body parts, That's a really tasty pig. And I just am certain, having eaten so many of those guys, I'm certain that he would be very enjoyable on, let's say, a 2+. So basically, my Dire Troll rating system of snacks is incorporated on the fact that you take a D6 and you roll it, and that's the chance I'm going to enjoy it.
All right. Well done.
So, yeah, the lower, the better.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, Craig, what were your final thoughts on Company of Iron?
My final thoughts. Con first. As I've already stated.
Clearly, you got to download rule books. That's ridiculous.
No. I'm just saying. I'm not a fan of 30-30 because there are so many games that use 36 by 36. You've got all these 36 by 36. Now, it's cool that Table War has a whole bunch of 30 by 30, and that's true. And I was looking at them while we were talking and going, that would be. But I have 36 by 36 on a bunch of those, and I don't want more. So that's a little annoying to me.
Right, sure.
But there it is. Okay. I don't like when you need to have resources online or or electronics of some kind. I'm not a big fan of that. Yeah. But that being said, the only actual problem I had, the only time I was playing the game and there was any kind of dissonance is when in Warmachine, it's in 40K, you might do like, maybe if you're lucky, like, the game is constantly being compared with Necromunda, the old Necromunda. We don't know. We have a copy of the new Necromunda, but we haven't been able to play it yet. So the old Necromunda where you would hit somebody with a heavy bolter and maybe you do 3 wounds and he's only got 1, and then you're only getting that 1 damage roll, and that's kind of frustrating. But in Warmachine, if you get a really good shot off on somebody or a really good whack with a big weapon, it's conceivable that you're doing 12 or 13 wounds to a 1-wound model. Right. So in those instances where you have severely overkilled your target, it's very frustrating that can all be overturned on a 5 or 6 on 1d6. So I did find that very frustrating, that I have this big surge of adrenaline moment where it's like a stand up at the table moment where you're like, yeah, and then Russ rolls a 6. Or even worse, from your emotional point of view, flips a card and goes, I've got a card. Now, the card thing doesn't bother me because that's cool. You've only got 5. You're spending one of your really important cards. But the fact that it's a die roll, if there was some kind of mitigation where you got some kind of a bonus to that roll if you did a bunch of extra wounds, or some nod to reflect that you just really gave somebody a solid whack, I would like that more. This doesn't make me not like the game. I mean, I still enjoyed all the games that I played, but you have 1 or 2 times during a game of Warmachine or Company of Iron where you got that awesome roll where you rolled 3 6s on a charge or whatever. And then to have all of that undone by that 1d6 was kind of annoying. But like I said, I don't know. I'm sure it's streamlined to make the game as quick as possible. So I think why that wasn't. Nothing is there to address that, but it can be frustrating and take a little bit away from your excitement in a moment like that. But on the pro side, I love that it's alternating activations. It's a much more interactive game, I feel. When instead of I'm going to move all my stuff and you went second, so now you don't have any targets, or I just wiped out half your army, which doesn't often happen in Warmachine, admittedly, because the ranges are so short. But I really enjoy just the feel of the flow of a game where it's alternating activations. I love that there's no caster, so there's no caster kill, because that is one of the things I dislike most about Warmachine and Hordes. Is that I know the game way better than you, so I've got these 3 models, and then bing, 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 they went all the way across the game board and whacked that one model, and now the game's over. I don't like that at all. I love the character that you can bring to your leader, that you've got these 6 different cards, and they can really kind of reflect different personalities that you don't have access to when you're playing Warmachine or Hordes, where all of your characters are pre-generated, for lack of a better word, that already exist in the fluff, and there's no real customizing of your own story as things go forward. Going into that, I love that every time we've played, I really feel like there's a story unfolding between the alternating activations, the small unit sizes or the small force sizes, and the missions. I feel like there's a story that's being told. And quite often in Warmachine and Hordes, I don't really feel that. I feel like it's more of a generic kind of war game. And there's no smaller, like more intimate personal story being told. So I really, really enjoyed that aspect. And then finally, I find myself really liking and being engaged with these small model count games where I can kind of get behind these models and sort of feel for them a little more. So I've really enjoyed it. So I am really enjoying this game a great deal. It makes me, when I'm going through all my models, they're models that I haven't used in years. I'm using my Retribution models, and so they're units that I have that I've never used, and all of a sudden they're coming out because I kind of have my 2 or 3 units of infantry that are my go-to units that offset the power of the jacks that I like to, or the myrmidons that I like to field. And now without those big myrmidons stomping around, I have other things I have to worry about. I have these objectives that I'm going to need to be grabbing. I don't want a small model count army, so I can't use the really expensive stuff. And so I find myself going to these other units that I usually either don't fit in my bigger army because they don't fit in philosophically, or I can't fit them in point-wise, although I would like to. And all of a sudden I'm using all of these units that I haven't before, and I really enjoy that a great deal. I love any game where I can get a lot of my terrain onto the table. So a game that focuses on a terrain-heavy Russ and I, for all intents and purposes, played on my Frostgrave city table on Tuesday. So there was a ship in the middle of the board, and big buildings and bridges and cemeteries and ruins, and awesome. All of that stuff actually works because of the way terrain works in Warmachine and Hordes, which it can be mildly frustrating, but that's neither here nor there. I like it because it's clean and it's solid, and it means that everything on the board actually has a rule that's very, very simple to understand. And are you within, 3 inches or 1 inch, or I forget, to use the terrain to get the cover? So you know whether you're going to get the cover or not, and if you're there, you get the cover. So even a simple barrel on the board all of a sudden has meaning. So I really enjoyed that. So I've really enjoyed it. It has got me looking at. I've got 2 collections. I've got 2 Hordes armies that I bought for really cheap a long time ago, and then never got around to even taking them out of the boxes. They're up in my attic. I'm thinking, I got to remember what's up there because I want to bring it down and make those armies. So I've got some other options. So I'm really, really enjoying it. It does a lot that makes Warmachine. It does a lot to mitigate the things that make Warmachine really not my go-to game, which would be like the caster kill, the lack of character, the lack of customizable character, so I can't really tell my own stories. And so I'm going to say a 3+ for any miniature gamer, because I think it's a very solid rule set. It's very approachable. There's nothing really confusing or complex about it. If you are already a Warmachine Hordes player, I think it's going to be a 2+ with a reroll. And the only caveat to that would be when we were talking over the weekend with Rafe about it, and his point was, well, I already like Warmachine and Hordes, so yes, I really enjoyed playing Company of Iron, but it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, to a strong Warmachine player. But if you're looking for alternative ways of using your models, you already love Warmachine, but there's other ways you'd like to play the game, this is an excellent avenue for that kind of impulse.
That's a bold rating, sir. And I'm probably going to be very close to that, because I too, echo everything you said. The 30 by 30 thing doesn't bother me so much. You do get that feeling once in a while of, gee, I wish my shot had killed him. But I get that feeling in Warmachine too, when you roll 3 6s to wound, and and you just did 30 wounds to a model with 1 wound. So it kind of happens anyway, but it does feel worse when the guy doesn't at least die on you.
Right.
But I love, there's so much about this game that I really, really like, and a lot of brilliance here. A lot of the stuff they brought in, as Romeo pointed out earlier, has been really pushed by earlier games, like Wild West Exodus and others with the integrated turns and everything else. But it's pretty innovative that they were able to figure that out to doing it while still keeping large swaths of the Warmachine and Hordes rules the same, including the point values, which I thought was pretty smart. Yeah. What I also like is the few rules they did have to change. Like, for example, combined range attack, right, or combined melee attack, both those combined attack rules in Warmachine and Hordes says everybody in the unit just all fires together and all their attack values add up. The problem with that in this game is, guys are spread out, and you don't want to just auto kill somebody. So what they did was they changed the rules slightly so that when any one model activates that is part of a unit with that skill, you get +1 to your hit and damage rolls for every model within 1 inch of that from that unit, to a maximum of +3. So it's still there. It's still basically the same rule. It's just much, much simpler and really easy to calculate, and you're rewarded by keeping your guys together. But your opponent's also rewarded for shooting in creative ways and killing, because even just injuring a model in that group, since he's no longer battle ready, that problem goes away. So all of a sudden, there are ways, it adds sort of extra layers of strategy once you start realizing how all the mechanics of both sides work. What's also fun about this, Craig, and you didn't mention this, but I think you've noticed it in game, is that one of the awesome things is a double-edged sword in Warmachine and Hordes, which is there's so many cool model-specific rules and so many cool synergies. Yeah. It's hard to keep track of in larger games of Warmachine and Hordes, especially for new players. But here, since both sides are really running a single unit, maybe 2 units, it doesn't take many rounds of play before you pretty much know the stats of both sides of the table, right? Right. Because you're not trying to remember 3, 5, 10 different cards. There's really 2 on both sides, right? Mm-hmm, so quickly you're into it, and now it goes from that complexity makes the game complicated to all those different variety options just make the game infinitely replayable with all these different things, because now there's like 30 choices from just Signar. You could be, plus different combinations of those is probably close to like 200 combinations or more for one single faction. And then there's 13 factions if you count Hordes and Warmachine together. So the amount of variety in this game now is off the charts. Yeah. I also love the card mechanic itself. I want to say it's innovative. It's a little bit evocative, though, of Weird's Malifaux mechanic, in that you've kind of got your hand of dice rolls, you've kind of got your hand of boosts, but the battle plan part is super innovative because, to your point, Craig, not only can you customize your leader before the play, but when you issue those battle plans, you really feel like your leader's shouting an order, right? Like, fire to kill, or, get down, or whatever. You feel like you're really doing different things, and you're holding those cards for the right moment, which is really neat. Yeah, well, it makes it more of a story. Absolutely. Do you know what it reminded me of? Yeah, was when we demoed the new edition of Wild West Exodus at Gen Con. Oh yes, has cards that do almost it has 2 different decks of cards that combine to do almost the same sort of thing. Yeah, with maybe a little less resource management, which makes sense for Warmachine Hordes. Yeah, so I'm liking this trend in miniature games and again, I think it's. Parts of it, I think the battle plan in particular is really innovative, but I think also what this feels like Privateer managed to do in a very clever way was modernize Warmachine and Hordes, but they didn't change Warmachine and Hordes, right? So you've still got Warmachine and Hordes, the classic. It is in Mark III now, obviously, so they've obviously updated that as they went along. But it would be really hard to take Warmachine and Hordes and make it integrated turns. Maybe they'll do it in Mark IV, who knows? But here they've done it, and now they're experimenting. They're getting data and out, and as players we can try it out, and it just feels really right. Also, I mentioned a little bit, the variety on this game now is off the charts, and we've talked about this when GW does skirmish games. But what's really good about this game is you look at other factions, and you've always liked I have the Clockwork Angels. Now, it might be fun to field them. I haven't played them in a while, or there might be I don't really like all the different Gremkin. The styles doesn't appeal to me, but because the style is so wildly varied, there are certain Gremkin units that I really like. Now in this game, I can just buy that one unit and play it. So there's some really cool options here now. It's the classic move that they'll sell more models, but also it's a new way to play with what you've got, and you're probably more likely to buy 2 or 3 little things just to add to what you've got there. Yeah. And the rule changes just work. And I love the scenarios because, to your point, Craig, it makes it much more storytelling. So all kinds of expansion options here. Like imagine those 6 leader upgrade cards. Imagine faction-specific leader upgrade cards, right? All of a sudden, you could imagine them taking this game to the next level, presuming it does well. And I really hope it does because I like it. So please add more. So I'm going to give it I think you're right on the money, Craig. I think this is a 3+ for any miniature gamer. It might even appeal to non-miniature gamers. You still have to want to paint and collect models, but it's a low model count game, so you can jump right in. I think the starter box is a very reasonable price. You're right in, high-end board game price range territory, so it's not silly expensive.
Yep.
So I would recommend, if you're not a miniature gamer and you want to try it out, this is definitely a great starting point. There's going to be some nice board game mechanics you're going to like the hand management. So I think it's fantastic. I think it's 3+ for anybody, and you're right again, Craig. 2+ for a Warmachine and Hordes player, because it's just another way to get value out of your models. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Romeo. After hearing all that, what do you think, my friend?
Oh, I just woke up. I'm sorry, guys. What's going on? Jeez,
rattling on here, and it's 4 hours.
We might talk a little bit.
Yeah.
Holy cow! No, I haven't played the game, but at the same time, I have looked over the game. I've played with the miniatures. For the obvious reasons, we had to build the storage solution for it. So I've had interaction with the cards that you're talking about and all of the different pieces that came with the game. Here's what I like about it. I like that Privateer Press is not comfortable in their current status and are willing to venture into new systems. I think that's really cool. I give their development team a high five simply on the fact that this mechanic borrows from a lot of games in the industry right now, but they've at the same time made it their own and incorporated the thousands of minis that they have already. Well, whatever number it is that they have. That has got to be an astronomically tough feat to do, to go through and actually create all those requisition costs and make sense of it and keep the game fundamentally usable, right? So to be able to do that and do it at a competitive level where somebody picks up the rules and learns this game and then goes and grabs the models that they like most and builds it out and builds a list or does what they need to do to play this game, I think is awesome. So high kudos for that. That alone gets, in my book, a 1+ simply because that takes a lot of, the cojones, right? Because you're going to pee off a lot of guys that in your standardized Privateer Press old gamer group are going to look at this and say, well, this plays like this, or this does this, or I don't like that, and to be able to say, hey, try this out, guys, and look at something new we're doing, I think it's very cool. I also think, personal opinion, of course, that this is almost like a test bed for MK4. I think they're looking at how some of these things and functionality features of this skirmish game can be then tied into the big game and how it would work and how it would help the big game either move faster or be more competitive or just attract more customer base. So I think that's really cool. I like the fact that you get limited edition models in the game. I think that's really cool. I like that it plays on a smaller scale. I mean, I'm sorry, but 30 by 30, 2 foot by 2 foot, 3 foot, but whatever it is, irrelevant in the greater scheme of things. To have a small game that plays big as far as fun is concerned means a lot. Especially what we were talking about earlier, where people's attention span now is literally how fast can you entertain me, or I'm going to forget about it and move on to the next thing. I think having this system play in such a cool, epic, big style and tell a cool story in a very small, confined space with a ton of terrain, which every gamer loves, I think is a very good positive move on their end. So I give them high kudos for that. I like the idea of limited edition models. It makes you buy the game. It's smart. It's a business move, but at the same time, I think it's smart. I like that I can't find these 2 models anywhere else because it makes some exclusivity to owning the game and committing to the idea. So I think that's cool. I'll have to go against what Craig says. I like the idea of the downloadable cards because the system they have is so smart on their website as far as getting the cards. And I don't know how much you got, because you guys probably have War Room, and I'll talk about phones at the end of the conversation, like we said, and why I don't use War Room. But anyway, not because it's not a good app. Phones are a pain in my, Anyway, I really like how intuitive they've made their downloadable PDF website. I mean, we tried to do this with Wild West Texas years ago. It was very hard to do what they did. And the fact that you're able to literally select the cards that you want to print on a sheet, and then it prints those out, or you can take an entire army and print every single card. I mean, God, go on Amazon, buy a $40 color printer, LaserJet color printer, and print out your own cards and stay up to date with the latest rules because they can update these cards on a fly, which is awesome because now I don't have to wait or buy a bunch of cards I don't need just to find the one card that changed. And then did it change already? Did I already have that card? Oh, my God, I lost cards. Literally go on here, I download it. I think it's very cool. So I like that a lot. The one thing, my only negative for this game is the factions they picked. And neither here or there. It's just like a personal opinion. I just feel that they could have picked, I feel the better battle, and I think they would have pulled more people in, is Cygnar is just like the tried and true first army, if you will. I think when they designed the game, when Matt did the game, when Warmachine was kind of coming, I think Cygnar was always like one of the premier factions that was designed. So that's a no-brainer. But I really would have loved Trollbloods to be the bad guys, or whatever you want to call them, good guys, the Horde side, right? Because I think Trollbloods would have been a cooler fight instead of the minions. That would be my only downfall to it. Just because I think there's so many cool models in the Troll line when you look at units. I mean, Bushwhacker, Sluggers, all these cool models, I think they're called Trollkin Scouts or whatever. Those are cool minis, and that would be cool to have those guys, which you can still do it, obviously. You can if you have those models, you can play this game with them.
Right.
But it would have been cool in the box set. That's all I'm saying. That's just my opinion. But I do like what they did with the game overall, and I like the fact that it's instant entertainment in a box. I can take this thing camping with me. If I go out and I'm stuck with the family and I can get one of my in-laws to play this game with me, I can be cooped up for a weekend with this game, play 2, 3, 5, 10 times, and have a blast. I don't have to haul a bunch of stuff with me. And I think that's really cool that they've designed a game that can do that in the Warmachine Hordes world and universe. So in my book, for my score, I give it on the simple fact that they went out of their way to create something that to them is very new, very exciting, and uses a lot of fundamental features of their already existing universe. I definitely give it a 2+. Only reason I don't give it a 1+, because I really love the concept, I really love what they did, is that they picked a faction that I didn't find appealing out of the box. But if we're just rating the box itself, it's a 2+ for me, solid.
Nice. And Romeo, you made me think of one other thing, and one of the reasons I love War Room, although we're definitely going to put your phone thing in the blooper here, is that I just turn, and I love this about Warmachine too, so they've gotten to this phase of the Warmachine and Hordes now, right, where they refactor a certain unit every quarter. So every quarter they pick a unit, they go back into play test, the fans all chime in, they tweak it, and they change the card and they update the card. Well, I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I just turn War Room on and all the latest stuff is there.
Yeah.
And what was wonderful was when they updated Company of Iron and War Room a couple weeks ago, and I was playing with Rafe, I just turned it on and like, oh look, Company of Iron mode, click, and I know all the cards are up to date, right? And if they tweak this stuff and iterate on it and change the requisition costs or anything else, I don't have to think, right? So like that is, barring, technological challenges of phones always working, and I know War Room is particularly buggy on Android and all those other things, but I'm glad they're investing in this and trying to make it work, because that is sort of the utopia for gamers, right? You turn on this little screen, it's got all your cards on it, and it just works, and it's the latest information.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Cool. Well, Romeo, thank you so much for joining us here on the show and taking time out of your very busy, highly foamy-focused life. We really appreciate it here. If folks want to find out more about what you're up to and what you're doing, where should they go on the internet to find out?
Well, our social hubs are usually the best. And one other tidbit of information about us, just a quick outro kind of tidbit. We are hiring a new person that will start at the first of the year. His name is Billy. I'll let him introduce himself. He'll hopefully come on future shows with you guys. Yeah. He is going to be our social marketing manager. And what I mean by social is he is going to become really the face of Battlefoam. So I am stepping away. I'm getting behind the curtain officially. Mm-hmm. And ideally, I hope to do this. I'm going to try my best not to get involved as far as being in the limelight. But what my goal is to really have Billy take over all of the social community events, start doing more shows, meaning go on podcasts, get involved with the community events, do a lot more prize support, do contests on a weekly basis, and do a lot of things with our social media hubs. So you're going to find him and us as a company on the regular channel. So if you look us up as Battlefoam on the Facebook page, we have a Battlefoam US and a Battlefoam UK hub. So you can go ahead and connect with either side of the world and directly work with the Battlefoam of your choice. Our UK one has a British accent. Our US one has an American accent. Mm-hmm. So feel free to talk to whoever makes you happier. Obviously, we're on Twitter, Instagram. So look for those places for us to do a lot of regular updates when Billy takes over and starts becoming more socially involved with the community. So we're going to do a lot more community outreach programs where we really work with the even small mom and pop events to take care of them, either with prize support or some sort of cool discount system, or something to really make even the smallest of events become a popular thing and help them grow or just have a successful show. So look for us again at Facebook under Battlefoam, Twitter under Battlefoam. Same thing with Instagram, and follow us throughout all those channels, and we'll update everybody on a regular basis.
That is awesome. Well, Romeo, thanks so much. Take care, and best of luck with all your Battlefoam focus.
Always a blast to have you on the show, Romeo.
You guys are awesome. Congrats for a great show and going so strong for so many years, and I look forward to the next visit.
This Jiver Notice is brought to you by all of our friends at Patreon, the men, the women, the boys and girls who have stepped up, who have become a part of the show, who have helped us go on year after year now, and without whom the D6 generation would be but a bittersweet memory. And today I would like to thank particularly Alex Holt, Tim Horberg, Richard Hudson, Alex Hunter, and Nicholas Martinez. Thank you guys, and thank everybody who's taken a chance on us, and we hope we haven't done you too terribly shamefully. Do you ever notice how easy it is to let some truly horrible things happen just incrementally, little by little, without really realizing what had actually happened all along? I just recorded a Did You Ever Notice that was over 15 minutes long, and then I just deleted it because I'm just going to save everybody an awful lot of what I just said. I'm going to try to sum it up, and I'm going to try to be not as pedantic as I feel like I ended up being. I really just wanted to talk about the musical on Broadway, Come From Away, which I just saw right before Christmas, and if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I found it very powerful, and that it did pose in me some questions about where we are right now as a culture, where we are as Americans, where, you know, a wider world the humanity is. But very briefly, quickly, Come From Away is a musical that I'd heard a lot about. It was supposed to be great. It was supposed to be amazing, and it did turn out to be an award-winning musical. It's playing still months after it opened to 102.5 capacity crowds. It's I found it to be easily one of, if not the most affecting musicals I've ever seen. It's about September 11th, 2001, which I thought was a very odd subject for a musical, but it's more than that and less than that at the same time. It's about Gander, which is a small town in Newfoundland, Canada, which for some fluke of history has a very large airport that at one time was the largest airport in North America. And on September 11th, when they shut down the U.S. airspace, all of the international flights that were on the way to America had to be redirected. And they had to find landing places for all of these planes, most of whom had not enough fuel to get back to where they had come from. And so every airport that could handle major international aircraft, was being given all of these flights. They were handing them off, doing just heroic work, directing all these different flights. 39 flights ended up going to this tiny little town of 9,000 people in Newfoundland. And the 9,000 flights, I believe there were about 9,000 people living in Gander, and these 39 flights contained, I think, about 7,500 people. So almost doubling the population of this little town overnight. And the story is about those people on the planes. Of course, it's not 7,500 stories, but it does an amazing job of showing you little snippets of a lot of different stories while following several through lines. Some of them real people, some of them composites of several real people put together, but all of them events that actually occurred, and the people in Gander at the same time. And it was stunning. The staging was phenomenal. The acting was phenomenal. The singing was unbelievable. The band was actually on stage, incorporated into the story several times. The set was just amazing. And I was in awe. I was in awe the entire time. It's 100 minutes long, a little bit over 100 minutes long, without an intermission, because the story is so driving. The pace of the story is so important and so relentless that there isn't anywhere during that 100 minutes or so where you could take a 15-minute break and not cost, and the cost would be worth it to the building tension of the story. You learn things. I learned all kinds of things. I didn't know that all the different airlines had different policies over what to tell the people on the planes. Most of them didn't know anything. It was before cell phones. It was blessedly before social media. We'll get to that a little bit in a few minutes. In a minute, because this is going to be the not 15-minute version. And it was just, the entire thing was so impactful. I was in awe days later, and I tricked Karen into playing one song from the show on the radio, because now we're doing Spotify for some reason, and I just started bawling when the song came on. It was so powerful. And I tweeted out right after right from the lobby, actually, which I don't normally do. And it was just, so if you are anywhere near New York, or you ever get a chance once it starts to tour, I highly recommend it. And it doesn't matter what side of this massive divide that we're suffering through right now you are on. I promise you that this show deals with everybody with compassion and humanity. And that's really, really what I walked out of that just stunned by. Because I hadn't realized how little there was of that anymore. And I blame a whole raft of things, and most of them are shadowy figures that I wouldn't even know where to point. But there was a time, and I'm politically, very quickly, I'm in the middle. When I went to military school, I was too far to the left for the military school kids. When I was in theater school, I was too far to the right for the theater kids. Luckily, because of my personality or something, I don't know, everybody was willing to go, oh, he's just that wacky guy. And, I had friends on all sides. But the key, though, back then, was that you were willing to believe that the guy on the other side of the aisle was, he had the best of intentions. He just disagreed with you on the methods for the most part. I mean, when you get right down to it, we all want roughly the same things, and we all, to a greater or lesser extent, disagree on how to get there. But that's not what we focus on anymore. We don't focus on the similarities, and there are far more things that bind us together than the things that divide us. But through human nature, now because of social media, which makes it so easy to isolate ourselves in little bubbles of people who agree with us and will validate the craziest little opinion. And I think, in no small part, due to people who have specifically used that tendency against us to divide us and to little constituencies that are easier to control and easier to manipulate, we now are at each other's throats. People who I have spent years of my life with, who have always known that I was I think, fundamentally decent human being, have now said vile things about me. Whether or not they acknowledge that they were about me, they were about people who they know I agree with on one side of the occasion, on one side of the issue, and another other side of the issue as well, because every issue I'm all over the place. Makes sense to me, but nobody else. And I know that's not where they've always been before. And so I really think now, listeners from last episode, 2017 was not a great year for me or my family, but at the same time, it was a great year, because, knock on wood, so far it looks like everybody's going to make it to the end. And so going into 2018, that's That's my resolution, is I'm going to try to see the good in people, and I'm going to try to see both sides of the argument, what I think we could do. These last 10 years have been very divisive, and I think we have been divided, actively divided. And I think, and not just in America, I think that people have hit upon this technique in most of the democracies now of the world, and I think they're being used by local people and by some international. I sound like a conspiracy theorist now, but I truly believe that there are people who have advanced their own causes and advanced their own power struggles through dividing people into more manageable chunks. And I think we have let them do that. And I think we do ourselves and our world a disservice. And this is, I know, bigger than, what we normally talk about. But it's controversial. Russ likes it when I'm controversial, I think. Maybe not this much. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to let go because now I'm at 10 minutes, and I didn't save you as much as I thought I was going to save you. But anyway, moving forward, just think about the humanity and think about the things that bind us together rather than the things that separate us. Just a little bit every day, and maybe we can turn some of this around. That's all I've got to say for this. Happy New Year. Hope you all had a very happy and festive holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, etc. Good night.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA discussions forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
All right, Romeo, so you're talking about this phone story. You got to share it. So what's the scoop with your phone?
Okay, so listen to this, all right? And seriously, trigger time, all right? Trigger time. So let me tell you this. Okay, so I've been an Apple. Are you guys Apple guys or Android guys?
I'm Apple.
I'm an Android.
So yeah, you got both.
Hold on, what? What are you, Craig?
I am Android.
Android. Russ?
Apple.
Apple. Okay, and have you guys been with those units for a long time, with those systems?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're kind of like you're in those systems because you've used them, you know them, you've kind of become accustomed to their ways, and you're almost a little timid to change at this point.
That's fair. Yeah, sure.
Yes.
What will happen if I make the switch?
Well, there's also the ecosystem of all the apps I own, right? So I got to go rebuy them all. Right. No, exactly right. It's the fear of, oh my God, what will happen next? Okay, so I was an Apple idiot from the first line when the first Apple phone came out. I was the dumbass in the back of the line, like, I want one of these things, right? So I had the Apple 1, the 2, the 2S, the 17S, whatever the hell they're doing, right? So I had this for the longest time. And, I don't know, iPhone 16 or whatever, S, V2 with the better emoji screen or whatever it is. Sure, right.
I did an update on the damn thing, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, everything's working retarded. It's either slow or buggy or this. And I'm like, why did I do an update on this idiotic thing if it works worse now than it did before I did my stupid update? Right. So I'm like, all right, I'm starting to get fed up. I know what's happening here. I'm looking at the big picture. Apple owns the world. I think they just bought the moon, and they have that also. So I'm literally in a situation where these dudes want me to buy the next iPhone 8, 8S. Oh, wait, there's a 10 already. We forgot all about 9. So they're like, let's get the Romeo to not have any of his apps work so he can go to the local store. Because I was a holdout. I was an Apple 6 phone user, right? I didn't even have the S. So I was a complete scumbag in Apple's eyes.
Right.
And I'm sure on their dartboard of people that aren't good enough customers, my name was flashing red. Apple 6 user holdout, smash him, destroy his soul. Anyway, none of my stuff works. So I was like, you know what? Enough is enough. I am jumping to Samsung. So let me tell you what happens, right? I go and I get the Samsung Note 8X Plus with the pen and all. I mean, what the hell it's called? Note 8X, whatever it is, right? The newest Samsung.
The non-exploding Samsung, right.
The non-exploding Samsung, that is fake news. Anyway, 2 people exploding does not make for a serious crime. It is just 2 people exploding.
I'm just saying, when the airlines are telling you to not carry it on, you may have a PR problem. Just throwing that out.
They are Apple users. They were bought out for that.
Right. They were paid off by the man. Steve Jobs' ghost was in there bribing the airlines. Right.
That is fake news. Okay. So anyway, so I get the phone, right? And I'm starting to play with the features. And I'm like, wait a minute. A screen that takes up the whole entire screen. This is exciting. Right. Oh, it has curved edges. Wait a minute. This is exciting. Oh, it has, face recognition technology. Cool. Right? And I'm finding all these cool features. And at the same time, I'm going to play a song for you. Tell me if you recognize this. Hold on. Let me do this. I don't know if you guys can hear anything from my screen. Can you guys hear anything on my end?
No.
Not really.
No.
Hold on.
Maybe if you hum a few bars.
Hold on. That?
No.
No.
Not hearing it. No. Nothing.
Sorry.
Okay. Do you hear that?
No.
Nope.
Not at all? Damn it.
No.
You need a phone with louder speakers. Try an iPhone.
All right. No, I'm not doing it on my phone. I was doing it on my computer, so I guess you can't do it at the same time. No. Anyway, here's my point. What Apple's really good at, what I realized is they're really good at creating really great commercials to sell really old crap that Samsung did 2 years ago.
They are really good at marketing. They are really good at marketing, yes.
Yes.
That is fair,
I was like, what the hell is this commercial about the iPhone 10 when all these features are on my Samsung that have been on Samsung for 2 years?
Yes. That is the point a lot of folks have made, yeah.
I seriously had a freaking trigger meltdown, and I don't even know why. I have no Apple or Samsung stock, so I have absolutely no bulls fighting in this fight. There's nothing. There is no dogs here getting beat up in any of these fights. And at the same time, I am so mad. I'm like, how dare they promote a screen with rounded edges when Samsung's done it for 2 years? So, what's the moral of the story here? The moral of the story is I am now a very happy Samsung user. I have not had any problems with my lovely phone. It works extremely well. Does some really nice pictures. Has all my music. I was able to port all my music over by following a very online tutorial. So the theory of iPhone, Apple songs being lost into the whatever Appleverse or cloud world and never getting them is a farce. Fake news. Fake news. You port them right over. They come right over. All my contacts came over. All my apps that I actually had, I was able to find for free on the Android device, and I didn't have to pay for any of it. So what's the moral of the story here? The moral of the story is God bless America for choice and freedoms that in old Mother Russia you do not get. If Vladimir Putin wants you to use the LG Nokia 6, you will use the LG Nokia 6. And that is your only choice, God bless it. But I have made the switch, and I am proud of it. I'm a Samsung user. See you later, Apple.
Now, let me ask you this. Have you used War Room on the Samsung?
I have not, because I'm a gentleman, and I like to print my cards.
Okay, fair enough. I see. So you don't. I get it. So this is a real gentleman plays with cards. Yeah. All right.
I like cards. I like physical things.
Yeah.
I feel like, if I have a card, I look cooler when I'm debating what I'm going to do to you in the battle.
Ah, I see.
Hold them patiently in my hands and stare you down. You feel more intimidated because it looks like I'm carrying a bag full of aces.
Yes.
I have a handful of aces and you're scared. Better than me staring at my phone like I'm one of those little millennials at the movie theater. speaking of that, side note, since this is blooper
Oh,
reel,
here we go.
can I
It's
just ask
Romeo
a
Rant
question?
Part 2.
Yes. Can I just ask a question for any of our millennials out there listening?
Sure.
Why do you
Why not?
people go to the mall, not watch any movies, but you go to the movie theater and you sit in a group, yet nobody talks to each other, but you all stare into your phones and text each other?
That's a great question.
It's collaborative
What is
texting,
happening?
Romeo. It's collaborative texting. They're all
Romeo,
working together.
this conversation actually happened in one of my classes today.
Yes.
I had a girl at the end of the day say, "Can I plug in my phone? It's almost dead." Well, first of all, you shouldn't be plugging in your phone at school, but why is it an emergency? Well, I'm going to my friend's house after school, so we're going to be on the bus, and I need my phone.
Oh, my God.
So you're going to sit next to your friend
No talking.
on the bus and not talk, but be on the phone. Well, that's what we do.
We Instagram. Yeah,
That's what she said. She was like, I need to be doing, like, my stories.
Yeah, Snapchatting
Yeah.
and Instagramming. Ridiculous.
It is.
Nonsense.
It's a brave
Nonsense.
new world,
It's
gentlemen.
kids
A
today. You're
brave
right.
new world.
You're right,
Kids,
Romeo.
get
What you
off
said
my
earlier in
lawn.
the show is true. You are an old man.
You are
Welcome
an
Get
old
to
off
the
man.
my
club.
lawn, you little sons of... Get off my lawn.
Back in
you are
my
a man.
day, we actually talked to each other.
But to
Take
be fair, you're an old man with a stylish phone. So,
Yes,
that's
and
good.
take your stupid downloadable cards with you little sons of bitches.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
All right, Romeo.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for that rant. We really appreciate it because you can't have enough of those.